Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Benjamin, have we finally waited for our daughter to get married? Lauren was making herself pretty in the mirror. I can't believe it. I want Kayla to be happy at last. Benjamin adjusted his shirt, shook invisible dust from his pants, looked at his watch. Time to go to the guests. Excitement reigned in the bride's room. Kayla stood by the huge mirror and waited impatiently for her to finish lacing her dress, her friends chattering merrily. "Oh, Kayla, what a beautiful bride you are," one of her friends said admiringly. "It suits you so well. Your Matthew will die of happiness when he sees you." "Oh, no. She pretended to be scared. I want to see him alive and well. You and he are perfect for each other. Such a beautiful couple, and your dress is incomparable. If I knew that ready bought, I would have thought that sewn to order sits on you just like fit." "Oh, we're talking." Nora, the bride's best friend, looked out the window. "And there's the groom." "Kayla, don't go out to him yet." "Why not?" "Do you really believe a stupid omen?" Kayla impatiently looked out from behind her friend's back, trying to see the groom. "Let's not break tradition. We'll go down to the guests, and we'll call you to the registration." The girls went down the stairs decorated with colorful garlands. "And when did they have time to put a balloon arch at the entrance?" asked one of the girls. "Look, in the corners of the living room, bouquets of balloons." Immediately appeared a sense of festivity. "Yeah, there are little tables set up for guests everywhere. I want champagne." "You what?" Her friends told her off. "It's still early. What will the hosts say to us if we get drunk before everyone else?" "We're just a little bit." Guiltily replied the girl. "Let's go outside, shall we?" On the lawn in front of the house was a tent in which the employees of the marriage institution. Two women in bright summer dresses, with gorgeous hairstyles on their heads, were talking animatedly while waiting for the newlyweds. The solemnity of the atmosphere was added by intertwined, huge rings on the back wall of the tent. In the shade of fruit trees, there were tables set with appetizers and glasses filled with wine. It really is a marvelous arrangement here. The bride caught up with her friends, and now together with them plunged into the atmosphere of the upcoming party. "Kayla, why did you leave the room?" She was surrounded by her friends. "What if Matthew sees you?" "I can't stay locked up with guests in the house." The girl was shining with happiness. She couldn't wait to share her cheerful mood with everyone. Kayla smiled welcomingly at those invited to the party. "Kayla," a stylish middle-aged woman hugged her. "Congratulations! You and Matthew look just wonderful." The girl accepted congratulations from all sides, bowed in gratitude to the guests, and smiled. "It's indecent to be so openly happy." Nora whispered in her ear. "About half of the women here, you are envious." "What can I do if I'm happy?" The bride was beautiful. Her thick blonde hair was styled with a tiara. Her light makeup made her face more expressive, her blue eyes looking at the world with rapt attention. "Kayla," an acquaintance of her parents approached her. "Congratulations, you look very beautiful today. Where is the groom?" "I don't know." Blushing with pleasure, the girl replied. "I haven't seen him today." "You are just made for each other." The woman squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Kayla." Suddenly she heard the voice of the groom. "I've been looking for you. Come quickly to me. I missed you so much. What are you doing?" The bridesmaid stopped him. "Don't you dare go near her. It's bad luck. Just be patient. The party starts in 15 minutes. But I just wanted to kiss her." Matthew tried unsuccessfully to make out his fiancée in the crowd. "You'll get over it," one of the girls told him. You have a long and happy life ahead of you. You'll kiss again." Upset Matthew disappeared into the crowd. Honored guests, parents, bride, and groom. Finally, the toastmaster announced, it was time for the marriage ceremony to begin. The guests, laughing and chatting, reached the tent, where the music was already playing, and the employee of the marriage ceremony, in the microphone, invited everyone to come closer. "Kayla," the bridesmaids took the bride under the arms. "Come on, the groom's probably waiting." "Yes, come on, the wedding will not wait." "Don't worry," said one of the girls, noticing how Kayla's hands were trembling. "All is well. The guests are in place. The fun is starting. Where's Matthew?" Looking around at those present, the bride asked, "Where did he disappear to?" The guy was offended. Someone answered from the crowd. They chased him away. The guests laughed and began to shout, "Matthew, come out. The bride is waiting for you." Don't be afraid. Marriage is not scary at all. It's even pleasant. Or maybe he was afraid of the first wedding night. The men teased the groom. "It happens. Matthew, we can stand at the door for support." "Dad?" Kayla was about to cry. "Where's Matthew?" "Have you seen him?" "Yeah, he's around here somewhere." "He can't have gone far. Don't be nervous. Maybe the man had to go out on his own. Let's wait a minute. Guys," the girl looked back at the groom's buddies. "Where's your friend?" "Yeah, he's around here somewhere. He'll be right with you. He knows it's time to get the party started. Some woman came to talk to him. A relative of yours, I think. Maybe your mom?" said Kevin. "They left together and have not yet returned." Kayla always disliked Kevin. She thought he had too much influence over her boyfriend. "My mom is next to me." Kayla took her mother's hand. "Where's Matthew?" Kevin shrugged his shoulders. "I have no idea. Let's look for him. He couldn't have really run away, could he? Or maybe you're the one who tried to talk him out of marrying me." "Why?" The young man stared at her perplexedly. "I have no reason to upset your wedding." "Kayla," Nora snapped at her. "Don't be crazy, your Matthew's coming. What's the guy got to do with it? He always looks at me like he doesn't want me to marry Matthew. Maybe he likes you." The friend tried to lead the distraught bride away from the house. "Well, do you want us to go through all the rooms with you?" "I do." "I have to find my fiancé. I hope this isn't some stupid joke to tickle your nerves." Kayla walked up the steps into the house, looking in every room. Nora followed her. "Kayla, calm down. Maybe Matthew had a drink and fell asleep," she urged. "I think he's outside. He's lying on a bench somewhere in the shade. Yes, and he can't hear the noise of the guests." Kayla was concentrating on opening one door after another, not paying attention to her friend. "We've been through almost every room. You can see he's not in the house. Let's go outside. They must have found him by now. Now they can't wait for us. Wait, I haven't checked my parents' bedroom yet. Are you crazy? What would he be doing in their bedroom? He's not an idiot. Come on, don't get yourself worked up." Kayla, not listening to her, had already opened the door. "Well," Nora pounced on her when the girl suddenly stopped like a stumbling block. "Did you make sure there's no one in there? Let's go to the guests. What are you standing there for?" Her friend looked over the bride's shoulder and gave a quiet ouch. Kayla, on her parents' wide bed, the naked bodies of Matthew, Kayla's husband-to-be, and Lara, her aunt, her father's sister, were entwined in a passionate embrace. The lovers were sound asleep, not the least bit afraid of being caught off guard. The girl turned around and silently ran to her room without noticing anything around her. Kayla, Nora could barely keep up with her, frantically thinking of what to do. "Wait, don't be so hot," Stop, please. What are you going to do? Kayla flew into the room, ripped the tiara out of her hair, threw it on the floor, and then began to remove her dress. The thin fabric immediately ripped. Kayla, don't do this, please. Her friend rushed to her, wanting to hug her, to comfort her somehow, but Kayla pushed her away. Help me get it off. Pulling the laces from behind, the bride said, otherwise I'll rip it. Kayla, don't do anything stupid. Nora coaxed her, helping her with the lacing, not stopping me. Kayla had already changed into a casual outfit when there was a noise and laughter in the hallway. Is there anything I can help you with? Nora asked in desperation, looking at her friend sympathetically. How can you help me? I want to die. Kayla, my friend. The girl hugged her. Is he worth your life? I believe you're in a lot of pain right now, but I know you'll be able to bear it with dignity. Shall we go to the guests? I don't want to see anyone. Help me sneak out of the house, distract them for a minute. But you'll have to explain yourself. You can't just walk away. I'm with you, you'll be fine. Nora released her from the hug, squeezed her hand tightly, as if she wanted to convey her confidence and strength. Kayla looked at her silently and left the room. Kayla, where are you going to disappear to? Her father snapped at her. He was in a cheerful mood. First, Matthew, now you've disappeared. I hope you're not going to sneak away from us and get married in secret somewhere. That would be very romantic, but the guests are waiting. They want to party. The guests, who took part in the search for the groom, laughed and clapped their hands. My daughter? Her mother asked, noticing that Kayla had changed her clothes. Where is the wedding dress? Why did you take it off? The smile slowly fell off her face. By the feverish gleam in Kayla's eyes, the woman realized something was wrong. There's the groom. The father was relieved to see Matthew in the crowd. Well, thank God, everyone's here. Where have you been, you wretch? The bride and guests have been looking for you. And he was busy. Kayla shouted sarcastically, looking contemptuously at Matthew. The guests fell silent. What would happen next? He slept with your sister. In your and Mom's bedroom, by the way. She was choking back tears. The last thing she wanted to do right now was cower in a corner and not see anyone. But she knew she couldn't avoid talking to her parents. What are you talking about? Her father looked from his daughter to Matthew and Lara with horror. Kayla was frightening to look at, her face slim, her eyes so sad that Benjamin wanted to grab his daughter to hold her close to protect her from harm. Matthew did not raise his eyes. His face was crimson. Only Lara looked at her brother defiantly. My God! The man clutched his head. Lara, are you crazy? What are you doing? I'm sorry. There was not a shadow of remorse in the woman's voice. I couldn't resist. Matthew is such a sweet boy. She ran her hand over the young man's cheek, and he blushed even more. So cute and so passionate in bed, she laughed. Lucky you, niece. Lara looked at the girl mockingly. Do you realize what you've done? Benjamin said, looking angrily at his younger sister. You seduced the husband of my daughter, your niece. How dare you, on their wedding day? He is not my husband, corrected Kayla indifferently. Fiancé, now ex-fiancé. It doesn't matter. My father dismissed it. You ruined my daughter's happiness. What shame! What are we going to say to the people at the party? I want to remind you, little brother. Lara said mockingly, I paid for this whole party. What are you worried about, Benjamin? No one was left out of pocket. Now we all calm down, pick up snot, wipe tears, dress up, and as if nothing had happened, go to the guests. They have long been eager to start the holiday. Let's not deprive them of it. Dear guests, She turned to the guests who had gathered in a cluster. "Let's go down to the garden, drink, and be merry. Now the hosts will sort out this little misunderstanding, and we will finally begin the ceremony." The guests talked quietly amongst themselves and went down to the garden. Sweet Auntie. Kayla held herself together with all her might. It was so vile on her soul, as if she had been dumped in the mud. "Let this feast be yours. I don't even mind if you want to marry Matthew. He's all yours now. Whatever you want to do. He has no obligations to me. I release him from them and won't interfere with your little pranks. Isn't that what you wanted?" The woman only snorted contemptuously and followed the guests. Kayla's gaze fell casually on Lara's husband, who couldn't understand what all the fuss was about. There was a mute question in his eyes and anxiety on his face. "Uncle Gary?" She turned to him. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me, and I'm sorry. I can't stay here anymore. I'm stuffy." Kayla headed for the exit of the house. "Stop right now." She heard her father's voice. "I'm not done. We need to talk. Come back now." "I'm sorry, Dad." The girl shrugged. "I'm not in the mood to talk right now. I know everything you're going to tell me, so we can safely postpone the heartwarming conversation until tomorrow. Spare me the explanations now. You can't just walk away. Why don't we just calm down and pretend it never happened? You know we owe everything to Lara." "Yes, Dad," Kayla said tiredly. "I remember that we owe Aunt Lara everything, that we depend on her. Everything we have is hers. You work for her. I hear those words day in and day out, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have to put up with it. But that doesn't mean she has the right to seduce my future husband. We don't know who seduced who." Benjamin tried to stand up for his sister. "Dad, don't be a laughingstock. It's obvious who's who. Are you trying to protect her now? I realize we have to do something to keep the guests happy, and you're sorry if the money's wasted." "Really, daughter?" Benjamin blushed at her words. "The guests are in the house. The tables are set. It's awkward. We'll talk about it later, so we're late. Shall we go to the people? We can't really cancel the wedding. There's nothing wrong." "Nothing?" "Your daughter has just been treated like dirt. Don't pretend you don't realize the scandal your sister's gotten us into. Don't exaggerate." Father frowned. "Stop your hysterics. There will be a wedding no matter what." "No, Dad," the girl said firmly. "I'm tired of groveling. There won't be a wedding, and there's no need to think of anything. I'm sure you'll find the right words to explain yourself to the guests." "Well, what are we going to tell them?" At a loss, asked the bewildered father. The mother was crying quietly on the sidelines. "If you want, say that I am crazy and I urgently need to be placed in an asylum. I don't care, but rather reveal the truth. Then no one will have any questions." Kayla headed for the exit of the house. No one got in her way. No one tried to stop her. She came upon her aunt, met her eyes for a moment, and walked on. Lara had a haughty smile on her face. "That would be something to worry about, little brother." Lara grinned and spoke. "She will run and come back. How will she live without money? You'll see she'll be home tonight. Where will she go without you? She's offended, you see. Has she lost it? Don't you realize what you've done? Benjamin attacked her. Why did you do all this? Everything was going so well, you couldn't stand it. I had a little fun." The woman looked at her brother unhappily. "I promise, I won't do it again, even if you don't pout at me. I don't understand how it occurred to you to go to bed with that boy, and even a few minutes before the wedding, with guests and a husband in the house. Haven't you had enough of mature men? You got into our bed, too. Why? Sporting interest." Lara laughed. "What can I do if I like young, handsome men?" He was pleased, by the way. Would your daughter be able to give him what I gave him? She's no good in bed. Now he knows how a wife should please her husband, and that's a lesson to her. Don't flick your beak. You have to keep a man in your sights at all times. I'd shock. If you dare me again. Benjamin's voice is filled with metallic tones. Interfere in my daughter's life? I? What you? What will you do, Benjamin? Lara squinted her eyes. Remind you where you belong. Don't you forget yourself. Don't you ever raise your voice to me. Enough moralizing, it's time to go down to the guests. Think what you're going to say to them if you can't talk sense into your daughter. On the lawn, the guests languished in ignorance. The employees of the marriage institution impatiently looked at the clock. The appearance of the owners of the house was greeted with applause. What happened? It was coming from all directions. It's time to start the party. Our throats are already dry, and we haven't had a poppy in our mouths since morning. Where's the bride? Where's the groom gone again? Why do you always lose them? Dear guests, trembling from the excitement, said Benjamin, I have to inform you that there will be no wedding. What do you mean there won't be a wedding? What's the matter? Is someone dead sick? The crowd erupted again. There have been unforeseen circumstances. Please forgive us for spoiling the holiday. The guests chattered indignantly and slowly began to disperse. And I want to have fun. A cheerful voice suddenly sounded on the lawn. Why are the guests leaving? It has begun. Rolling her eyes to the sky, Lara said, her husband, holding a champagne glass in his hand and not firmly on his feet, blocked the way. Calm your husband down, Benjamin asked. We don't need another scandal. Gary, shall we go home? The woman spoke affectionately, taking her husband under her arm. The party is already over. Darling, the man, swaying with cloudy eyes, stared at his wife. I don't want to go home. I want to have fun. Why is everyone leaving? Stop them. He nimbly grabbed the arm of one of the guests, trying to hold on, but the man pushed him away sharply. Gary lost his balance and fell right onto the appetizer table. There was a pitiful clinking of clinking glasses. Champagne spilled. No drunken man screamed. What's the pity? That's how money goes in the sand. He laughed drunkenly and crawled on his knees, trying to pick up the sandwiches that had fallen into the grass. Hey, waiter, bring the tray. What's the point of wasting it? Enough, Lara said sternly. She took her husband under her arm and tried to get him to his feet. Get up. Damn you. Let's go home. When did you get so drunk? Leave me alone. He yanked his arm out. Don't touch me. It's a shame we didn't get to go to the wedding. The day was ruined. Benjamin, Lara threw an angry look at her brother. What are you standing there for? Help me get him in the car. Can't you see he's out of his mind? Drunk Gary was picked up and led to the car. I don't want to leave. He wouldn't go. Benjamin, tell her we haven't had a toast to the young ones yet. Matthew, Kayla, be happy, guys, shouted the man, breaking out of his arms. Love each other. Bitter. Why doesn't anyone yell bitter? Be happy. Tears sprang from his eyes. Lara, he cried, I love you. Let me kiss you. Benjamin, tell her we must celebrate your daughter's wedding. Gary, calm down. Benjamin urged him. We'll drink to the health of the young couple, but now go home. They got him into the car. Lara nodded goodbye to her brother and drove off. Finally, all the guests left. Benjamin sat with his wife in the tent on the lawn and looked sadly at the set tables. He smoked one cigarette after another. Evelyn cried quietly. What a beautiful couple they could have been. I was so happy when Kayla confessed that she had fallen in love with Matthew. literally from the first time she met him. Do you think his daughter will forgive him? Of course she will. She's a sensible girl, Benjamin said thoughtfully, remembering the evenings when the young man first stepped on the threshold of their house. Daughter, Benjamin, rubbing his hands together, entered his daughter's room. I want you to meet a very interesting young man. I hope he will be a good husband for you and a reliable business partner for me. And when I'm old, he'll be the head of the firm. What can I do if God didn't give me and my mother a son? I have to figure out who to leave my inheritance to. Dad, Kayla laughed, looking at her father. Do you seriously think I'm going to marry the man you choose for me? I'd like to believe that your first concern is for your daughter's happiness and then your business partner. Of course I am, silly. Her father kissed her on the cheek. But I don't want some gambler, without a tribe and without a family, to turn your head and take over the management of our firm. Remember history. Rich parents always try to make their daughter happy. Have you forgotten that this is the 21st century? I think I can arrange my own life. I'm sure you'll like Matthew, and you'll thank me later. He's a young, but very smart and promising young man, and he's already running one of the divisions of his father's company. If we merge the business, which I don't doubt at all, we'll be so strong, no competitors will be afraid of us. I hope he's at least handsome. The girl sighed doubtfully. Yes, he is. I'm sure you'll like him right away. My mother and I wish you nothing but happiness. Darling, Mother intervened in the conversation. When will your acquaintance come to us? I think, in a couple of days, and you, daughter, put on your best dress. Try to impress him. It won't be hard for you. You're a beauty. Kayla, without noticing it, was looking forward to the appearance of the young man in their house. Everything was ready for the meeting. The girl looked furtively at her watch and still shuddered with surprise when the doorbell rang. Matthew? She heard it and felt her heart race. Come in, please. Don't be shy. Make yourself at home. The young man entered the living room after his father. This is my wife, Evelyn, and this is my daughter, Kayla. The new acquaintance gave each of them a bouquet of flowers, handed a bottle of cognac to her father, and kissed first her mother's hand, then Kayla's. Goosebumps ran down the girl's skin. It's very nice to meet you. Matthew looked at the girl with interest. She blushed with pleasure. The young man was really handsome in Holland. The father was not deceived. Kayla thought with a laugh. We should take a closer look at him. Maybe we can really have something. Why are we standing here? Her mother came to her senses. Let's go to the table. Everything's ready. Matthew kept his eyes on Kayla. She was embarrassed under his piercing gaze. There was much talk of business at the table. Benjamin praised Matthew for his entrepreneurial spirit, admired his success. Kayla was mostly silent, listening to her guest's leisurely pace of conversation. You excuse me. Finally, the young man rose from the table. I have to go, unfortunately. Oh, that's too bad. Evelyn was saddened. But you'll come again, won't you? We had such a good time. I will. The guests bowed ceremoniously to their hosts. It was a pleasure to meet you. Kayla, my daughter. Her father addressed her. Show Matthew out. The young people went outside. Kayla, the young man spoke to her. Let's go to the movies, shall we? Do you like movies or do you prefer the theater? I don't know, the girl was confused. We still know each other so little. I think I've known you for a long time. Trying to catch her eye, said Matthew. If someone had told me that Benjamin had such a beautiful daughter, I would have asked to visit. So, shall we go to the movies? Well, okay. The girl answered shyly, unable to resist the charm of her new acquaintance. And what picture will we watch? It doesn't matter. just to spend this evening next to you." He was silent for a moment. "And let's put aside the ceremonies and go to you." "I agree." Kayla laughed. "Give me your phone number. I'll call you and arrange a meeting." They exchanged phone numbers. "It was a pleasure to meet you." The young man kissed her cheek. The girl blushed with pleasure. Matthew got into the car, honked his horn, and drove away, and Kayla lost her peace. She immediately started calling her friend Nora. "You can't imagine how handsome he is," she said dreamily, "and how smart he is. So speaks well. I was listening to him. I'm sure I won't be bored with him." "Beauty is not the point," Nora warned her. "He doesn't miss a single skirt. Why should you be so happy? You think it's easy to love a man who cheats? It's not a joke. So what? When we get married, he'll be completely different, you'll see. My love will do wonders for him. It's just that he's searching for his ideal. And you've decided that Matthew's ideal is you?" "I'm sure he is," Kayla said enthusiastically. "No man can compare to him. He's every woman's dream. How many men have you seen to compare?" snorted her friend. "You've only known him for a little while, and you're ready to jump into marriage. What if it's love at first sight? You're stupid. You will have more than one night to cry into your pillow because of him, knowing that he is somewhere with another spends the evening. Think before you speak, yeah. It's easy to lose your freedom, but you don't want to have to bite the bullet. And I believe he'll be all mine. I can make sure he never looks at another woman again. You don't doubt me, do you?" "I don't doubt you, but I don't doubt him. The humped man can only be fixed by the grave," Nora said doubtfully. "You'll cry with him." The young people began to see each other. Matthew could not see his beloved every day, because the business took too much time, but the meetings were always long-awaited and joyful. Not being able to see each other often, they called each other on the phone every evening. Sometimes they chatted until the wee hours of the morning. "Kayla, how would you like to go to a nightclub together?" "Relax, have some fun." "I'm in." The girl said yes. "It's been so long since I've been there." "Then I'll pick you up tonight?" "Okay, I'll be waiting. I miss you." "I miss you too. See you later." "Bye." Kayla lay in bed for a long time, smiling into the darkness of the night, Matthew's voice in her ears. "Daughter, why are you glowing like that?" Looking suspiciously at her daughter, Evelyn asked in the morning. "Mommy." Kayla threw herself on her mother's neck. "Matthew invited me to the club. So that's just great. I'm happy for you, dear." "Matthew, he's a wonderful boy, so reliable, and I feel so safe when you're with him." That's what a real man should be. The day of waiting for the meeting flew by. Kayla heard the sound of a car and ran outside. Matthew appeared with a huge bouquet of flowers. "Hi, these are for you." The young man held out the roses to her. "Thank you." The girl buried her nose in the flowers. "I'll put them in a vase and we can go." She went back into the house. What a magnificent bouquet! Her mother gasped as she accepted the flowers. "Matthew spoils you." "Mommy, he's so thoughtful." The girl quickly hugged her mother and ran away. The young people got into the car and went to rest. The club was crowded. "It's great here." Kayla, smiling, looked at the young man. "When I'm with you." Taking her hand, Matthew spoke. "I feel good everywhere. Kayla, I really like you. I've never met anyone like you. You're extraordinary. You can say that too." The girl was embarrassed. "I'm ordinary. There are thousands of them." "No, you're special." "Once again, I thank your father in my mind. I really don't want to part with you. When I don't see you, it seems that all the light fades before my eyes." Kayla listened to his voice and was ready to hug the whole world. I have another free night tomorrow," Matthew said as they sat at a table drinking a cocktail after dancing. "Shall we go to the restaurant? I need to have a serious talk with you. Tell me now, or I'll die of curiosity before tomorrow. No, it's uncomfortable here. I want us to have a festive atmosphere around us." Kayla's heart squeezed with excitement. "Will you come? Well, what do you want to talk about? I'm not telling you that yet. I want to surprise you. It'll be a nice surprise." Kayla was so nervous she was almost late for her date. In the restaurant, she was met by the receptionist and, smiling mysteriously, led her to a table hidden from prying eyes by a curtain. The girl's legs were shaking from worry. When the receptionist pulled back the drape, Kayla gasped. In the center of the table, there was a small bouquet of flowers, candles were burning, and the central wall was decorated with flowers made of balloons, ribbons, glowing garlands. "I've been waiting for you?" Matthew stood up to meet her. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." "I'm sorry," the girl said, embarrassed. "I was late. I was a little out of time." The young man gave her a hand and helped her sit down at the table. "I didn't know there were such nice places in this restaurant. Do you go to the restaurant often?" Matthew raised his eyebrows in surprise. "No, I don't," Nora protested. "But no one I know who frequents the restaurant has ever told me that." Meanwhile, the waiter brought appetizers and poured wine into glasses. "Have I told you before that you're very beautiful?" Matthew raised his glass. "You are a mystery to me, a magic. You've done the unbelievable. I'm not interested in anyone but you. No woman in the world compares to you. You're my cosmos, my unattainable dream." Kayla blushed with pleasure at these words. She was afraid to frighten her guesses, but in her heart, she secretly waited for Matthew to say the long-awaited words, "I would like to live with you all my life." The girl's heart was ready to jump out of her chest. "I have a surprise for you." At these words, the parterres slid apart and the magician entered. The girl laughed merrily. "What a surprise! I've long since come out of childhood. We are all children at heart." "Philosophically," Matthew replied, "this is only the beginning. The main surprise is ahead." The magician, making some incredible movements with his hands, took out a live rose from the depths of his tailcoat and handed it to Kayla. Then he took her right hand in his palms, mumbled something to himself, and suddenly released her hand. "Matthew!" Kayla's breath caught, and on her ring finger was a ring of two thin, delicate, intertwined rings of white and yellow gold. On top it was set with 3 small diamonds, which shimmered with sparkles in the glow of candles and garlands. "It's just unbelievably beautiful." She looked up at him with eyes full of admiration. "But how did the magician slip the ring onto my finger?" "I felt nothing at all." The man, smiling, bowed in a bow. "A sleight of hand and no fraud." He replied, bowed once more, and disappeared behind the parterres as suddenly as he had appeared. "My dear, will you marry me?" Satisfied with the effect he had produced, Matthew waited for an answer. "Yes, of course I will marry you." Tears sprang from Kayla's eyes. "Why are you crying? This is so unexpected, so unusual." "I'm crying with happiness. I love you. And I love you madly. I think there is no one in the world happier than me." The young man took her hand and kissed it tenderly. "I am also happy that such a girl reciprocated me." She looked adoringly at Matthew. "Now we have to announce to everyone that we are going to get married. The days until the wedding will drag on for an agonizingly long time, but I'm willing to wait as long as it takes, because the reward is you." They reached toward each other and fell into a long kiss. After dinner at the restaurant, Matthew walked Kayla home. They decided to make the wedding announcement, bringing both families together. Nora? The girl secluded herself in her room and immediately started calling her friend. Matthew proposed to me. We're getting married. I was afraid he'd never want to commit to me, and then it happened. And you said yes, of course. Yes, she laughed. You don't know how happy I am? I didn't expect him to ask me to be his bride so soon, and yet in my heart I waited. He's so sweet. He's mine now, forever, and I'll never give him up. Tell me you're happy for me. Fool, you're in love. My friend sighed heavily. You don't see anything. You don't want to listen to anyone. You'll regret not believing me later. You ignored all my warnings. You're wrong about him. He's changed. Why would he go out with other people when he's got me? And once we're married, I'll be surrounded by so much care and attention that he won't even want to look elsewhere. Knave. Nora sighed again. You're not thinking straight now, though. Do what you want, but don't come crying to me about your Matthew's cheating. I won't. Kayla lowered her voice. But promise me you'll be godmother to our children. Kayla ran outside, and Kevin was standing on the porch. It looked like he was waiting for her. Shall I take you out of here? Asked the guy. You waited for me on purpose to enjoy the triumph? Look, rejoice. I don't have a fiancé anymore. Kayla was shaking, eyes glittering with feverish fire. I want to help you. Shall we go? He opened the car door. Yes. Kayla quickly got into the back seat. Where are we going? Kevin asked and started the car. I don't know. Muffled, the girl answered. The main thing is to get away from here. They drove in silence for a while. Kayla looked out the window. Her mind was empty. Did you know he was cheating on me with Aunt Lara? The girl asked. Kevin gripped the steering wheel so hard that his knuckles turned white. Yeah. Yes, I knew. Finally, he spoke. I talked him out of this unholy affair. I told Matthew to stop, to think about the fact that he would soon have a family. I warned him against it, warned him that you'd find out one day anyway, but he wouldn't listen to anything. It was as if she'd bewitched him. You mean? Kayla said slowly, that this meeting wasn't a coincidence? That wasn't the first time they'd been together. Shit! Kevin cursed. I'm sorry, I thought you'd known about their connection for a long time. No, I didn't know anything. She whispered, tears streaming from her eyes. Why did he do this to me? All I could think about was him, believing him, and not seeing the obvious. Nora was right. I really am a naive fool. Kevin felt guilty in front of her. Damn it, I should have told her, he thought. It was hard for him to look at the crying girl. Kayla, you try to calm down. I'm sure Matthew is sorry for what happened. He'll definitely come to you, apologize, and you'll make up. Who doesn't? Lara seduced him, and he couldn't resist. She's an experienced woman. You know what? Wiping her tears, Kayla suddenly said, Take me to a bar or even a nightclub. I don't want to go home. In fact, I want a drink. Kevin nodded. Good for you, that's better. He said and drove the car to the nightclub. Kayla entered the room and went straight to the bar. Is something wrong? The bartender asked, noticing her mascara running down her cheeks. Yes, she answered briefly, pulling out a mirror and a paper napkin from her purse. I want a drink. The girl cleaned herself up and took a few deep breaths, trying to regain her composure. Kayla, my treat. Kevin lowered himself onto a nearby chair and ordered a cocktail for himself and Kayla. She took the straw out of the glass and drained it. Are you crazy? Kevin exclaimed. Yes, I was crazy when I decided to marry Matthew. Serves me right. Don't bother me. I want to get drunk. Why don't we dance? The young man suggested, eyeing her warily. Let's go. Kayla headed for the middle of the hall. Tell me, please. She was already a little drunk. How can you consider Matthew your friend? You're nothing like him. How many women did he have before me? How many while he was courting me, do you know? I don't know. The girl was moving to the beat of the music, waving her arms. I just realized today that he wasn't going to stop marrying me. He wasn't going to be faithful to me. And if I hadn't caught them in bed, they probably would have kept seeing each other. She laughed nervously. Kevin was afraid that a little more of this and the girl would become hysterical. Slow music started playing. Ask me to dance. Suddenly Kayla asked. The young man hugged her. She hung on him helplessly. Why? Why am I so unhappy? You will surely find your happiness, Kayla. Gently pressing her against him, Kevin soothed her. Do you think so? She looked at him with interest. Let's drink to love and true friendship. She freed herself from his embrace and headed towards the bar with a firm step. Young man, with difficulty pronouncing the words, the girl asked, pour me some more of your magic soothing drink. I'm not so sick at heart anymore. Yes, thank you. But don't drink it in one gulp. The bartender warned her. Otherwise you won't taste the cocktail. That's true. She shook her head. I don't remember what I drank, but it was good. Kayla? Kevin tried to stop her. Do you need a ride home? No way. I want to dance. You don't need to drink anymore. Who are you to tell me what to do? Maybe I'm the one who wants to get drunk tonight. Don't get in my way. Why aren't you drinking? One of us has to stay sober, especially when I'm driving. If you want to go home, I'll stay here. Then I'll ask this nice young man here. She tried to stroke the bartender's cheek. Call me a cab, won't you, buddy? I'm not leaving you. We came together, we'll leave together. Draining her glass, Kayla moved towards the dance floor again. She danced like she was trying to exhaust herself. How fun are the people here tonight? Jumping and waving her arms, she said, I feel very good. Thank you for bringing me here. You're a good man. Kevin followed her closely, not letting her go a step away from him. When she was tired, she almost fell at the feet of the dancers. The young man picked her up in his arms and carried her to the car. It was dawn when Kevin drove Kayla home. Oh, the girl moaned as she opened her eyes. The sun is so bright. What a headache. She wanted to get up, but leaned back against the pillow and closed her eyes, nausea rising in her throat. Good morning, beautiful. She heard a man's voice above her head. With difficulty, she opened her eyes again and squinted at the man. Oh, God! She whispered immediately, forgetting her headache, pulling the blanket up higher. You, me? What are you doing here? Where am I? Don't be nervous, please. You're in my house. Why did you bring me here? Looking at him suspiciously, the girl asked. You flatly refused to go home, so what was I supposed to do? Here, have a drink. He handed her a glass of water and a pill. It'll make you feel better. I hope you're not going to poison me. She said and took the pill. I don't remember anything. No wonder. Kevin laughed. You drained almost half the bar last night. No way, Kayla blushed. Actually, I don't drink. I figured as much. Smiling, he agreed. God, how embarrassing. The girl covered her face with her hands. Calm down, please. Nothing terrible happened. Just a little too much with cocktails. We danced, we talked, and then I realized that I had to get you home before you fell asleep on some sofa. And we did. Kayla faltered, searching for the right words. Between us? Don't worry about it. Kevin smiled again. Nothing happened between us. Why am I in your bed? Like a true gentleman, I gave you the bed, and I laid down on the couch. So I didn't take advantage of your helplessness. Your honor was safe tonight. You can rest assured. There's something else I forgot to tell you. Oh yes, your cell phone. He took the phone out of the nightstand and handed it to the girl. Sorry, I had to turn it off because it was ringing off the hook. Thank you so much for not abandoning me in my time of need. It's been a pleasure helping you. There's a towel and robe in the bathroom. Then come into the kitchen and I'll make breakfast. He stood for a moment, then walked out of the bedroom, leaving the girl alone. Kayla got out of bed. Her head was still foggy, but the pain was gone. She went to the bathroom, stood under the hot jets of water for a long time, as if trying to wash herself off the remnants of yesterday. Come to the table. Kevin invited the girl when she came out of the bathroom. It's a bachelor's breakfast, don't mind. Thanks. She sat down at the table. They ate in silence. Kayla thought intensely, picking at her plate of scrambled eggs. She ate a bite without tasting it. Her heart felt heavy. Your head is going to explode. Kevin couldn't take it anymore. Say something? I'm sorry. I'm not ready to talk right now. I have to sort out my own thoughts first. What should I do? The girl pondered. My running away is no reason not to talk to my parents. I should call them and let them know I'm okay. They must be freaking out. I'll call, and of course they'll defend Matthew and convince me to go back to him. My dad will say it's no big deal. He doesn't think Lara did anything wrong. I don't see how he can justify her when I caught Matthew in bed with her. This coming from my own father? Kayla? She heard Kevin's voice, and as if waking from a dream, she looked at him in surprise. I've been wondering about something for a long time. Maybe it will seem immodest to you, but I'll ask it. I'm trying to understand, did you agree to marry Matthew at the behest of your parents, or did you have feelings for him? You know, she said slowly, yesterday morning I would have told you yes, I love Matthew, but today I'm ashamed to admit it. Today I'm even relieved that the wedding is off. Kevin kept his eyes on her. Apparently, I only thought I loved him. It took a shock like that to realize what was true and what was false. What are you going to do next? Go back home? Oh no, I can't go home. I'm sure your father and mother will beg you not to call off the wedding. It would mean pretending it never happened. Smile at Aunt Lara like nothing happened and marry Matthew because he's a wealthy man and I don't want to play by their rules anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. All I know is I'm not going home. You know, suddenly Kevin said, come with me. Where? Kayla was surprised. My grandmother gave me a house in the village. It's 300 kilometers from the city. I've already got a job, a good position, a decent salary. We'll put the house in order and live normally. Why, there's fresh air there, the beauty is all around. After all, you can live for a while until everything calms down and then decide what you'll do. But I can't go with you. Where will I live? The house is big enough for 2 people. We can't just live together. It's a village. Who am I going as? You and I are strangers. In the city, it's not wrong for a girl to live with a man and not be married to him, but it's different there. It's a bad idea. It won't work. Yeah, everybody's gonna be pointing fingers at me. If it's important to you, you can say you're my fiancé. We're saving up for the wedding. We can live in peace for a while, at least 6 months. And then what? What happens in 6 months? Then you and I will be married. Kevin smiled. I should have confessed a long time ago, because I love you. But it's impossible. The girl said, confused. Why not? I'll have 6 months to win you over. What if? No ifs. You will love me for sure. I will do everything so that one morning you wake up and realize that you can't live without me. Kayla looked at the young man with a long look. Good, she answered decisively. I'll go. Good, Kevin was happy. Then let's get ready, get some groceries, and go to the village, away from the problems of the city. What are we going to do there when we get there? First, we need to assess the situation, see what condition the house is in. It might need some repairs. Kayla, the young man said hesitantly, of course, it's none of my business, but don't you want to talk to your parents? Not right now. Kayla frowned. A little later. Until I'm ready to talk to them, I need to calm down. I feel like I shattered into many pieces. I need to try to regain at least some semblance of composure. Okay, Kevin agreed. You know the best thing to do, don't you? They went to the store and had a long discussion about what to buy. What if there is no light where we will cook? Kayla hesitated as Kevin put a bag of potatoes in the cart. Wouldn't it be better to get something that didn't need cooking? Can we make do with sandwiches? Even if there's no light, the young man reassured her. We have an oven. We can cook everything on it. An oven? The girl was amazed. Do you know how to light it? Of course, he assured her. It's no big deal. When the cart was filled with the goods Kevin thought they needed, they quickly paid at the cash register, loaded everything into the car, and set off. Are you sure you know where we're going? Kayla asked as they turned onto the dirt road, not sad anymore, but rather happy with the anticipation of something new in life. Yeah, we'll take a shortcut. Don't worry, I know the area pretty well. When was the last time you visited your grandmother? About 10 years ago. Don't you think the terrain might have changed, and no one's been on this road for a long time? Watch out! Suddenly the girl shouted, "Hare!" You almost ran him over. The car swerved sideways. Kevin tried to straighten it out, stepped on the gas, the engine roared and stalled. That's it. Congratulations. The young man looked out of the window and said sadly, We're stuck. Stuck how? We had to choose between saving the hare or going straight ahead. As soon as I turned sideways, I got stuck. Forest roads are unpredictable. The back tire's in a hole. He got out of the car and sat down beside it, looking behind the mud splashes. Can't we get out ourselves? I can push. The girl also got out. It's no use. We're sitting tight. We can wait. Kayla said cheerfully, for someone to come through and help us. We could stand here till the third coming. I was a fool to take a shortcut. If we were on asphalt now, we'd be here long ago. Quiet. Kayla suddenly cheered him up and grabbed his arm. Do you hear that car? At this time on the road really showed a car. The driver stopped a few meters from the travelers. What, guys? He asked cheerfully, leaning out of the window. Stuck. Yes, we hit a pothole. Can you help us? Kevin thanked God for sending them this man. Where are you guys going? Asked the stranger when Kevin's car was already standing on a dry road. We're going to my grandmother's village. Why didn't you recognize the turnoff to the village? It's the other way. What other way? Kevin shouted. You have to get on the main highway and drive back about 10 kilometers, and there you'll see a signpost. He walked around the car, assessing the situation. Then he hooked up a rope, started his car, and dragged them to the road. That was it. He looked at the work of his hands with satisfaction. Don't get stuck again. The man said a warm goodbye to Kevin and Kayla and drove off. Let's get out of here. The young man was frustrated because time had been wasted. After about half an hour, they finally reached the village and found the house. Yes, Kayla looked around the rooms. We're going to have to do a lot of cleaning around here. That's all right. The boy answered her cheerfully. We have plenty of time to clean up before dark. This place is going to need some repairs. Kayla noted. and not a small one. Yes, Kevin agreed. Almost all the furniture is in disrepair. The floors. Stomping his feet, he said. They need replacing too. The walls and roofs are still strong. I agree it's a lot of work, but I think we can manage. What do you think? Kayla happily poured herself into the work in silence. I'll go and talk to the men, the young man said. Maybe someone will help us out. All right, I'll take a look around. Kevin left. The girl was left alone. She looked around the rooms with interest, looking at the pictures on the walls. The owners. Suddenly she heard, "Hello, hello." Kayla stepped out onto the porch and saw a woman smiling good-naturedly. Are you the ones who are going to live here now? We are. Kayla watched her with interest. It's good to be young. My name is Clara. Kayla, nice to meet you. We have nature here. The air is clean. Just live and enjoy. You should renovate. The deceased hasn't done it in 5 years. That's why we came here, to fix the house. Why are you going to do it alone? It's not that kind of work. I'll talk to my friends. We'll get you all the wallpaper in the house in no time. Don't worry, we'll clean it up. Oh, thank you so much. Kayla was at a loss. That would be great. It's too early to say thank you. When are you going to tile it? This weekend. Oh, that's great. We'll come over and help decorate all the rooms. Don't look at me like I'm old. I can still do a lot of things, and my friends are just as perky as me. You look around. Clara told me to take care of business. I'll go get help. By evening, the house was cleaned. You guys must be hungry. Clara realized. I'm an old geezer. I'm out of my mind. Come to my place. I'll feed you. Thank you. Kayla tried to refuse. We have everything. No excuses are acceptable. The old woman waved at her. It's completely different here. Kayla said thoughtfully as they drove back to town, late at night, tired. Strangers offer their help, and it's easier, isn't it? Anyway, I like it. I'm glad you liked it. Kevin smiled. We'll finish the repairs, and then we can move in. The week went by quickly. On Saturday, Kevin and Kayla bought all the furniture. It was to be delivered to the village on Sunday. I was afraid we wouldn't make it. The young man confessed when the young people had dinner at their house in the evening. There was so much to do. I didn't expect such helpful people here either. Can you imagine? The neighbors have already offered their help in assembling the furniture, so you won't have to do it all alone. And Clara promised to clean the whole house after the renovation. Sounds like she's enjoying it. I'm glad we have such a friendly neighbor. Sunday all day, I didn't even have time to sit down to rest. Guys, Clara stopped by when the furniture was already assembled. All that was left was to set it up and mop the floors. Finish up here and come and have a bath. It's the nicest thing to do before the work week, to wash off all the dirt. Oh, right, Kevin caught on. I have my first day of work tomorrow. Tired, Kevin and Kayla fell asleep. Kevin had to go to work today. The first thing that came to her mind when she woke up was looking in the new refrigerator and pulling out a plate of eggs. Yawning and pulling himself up, the young man peered into the skillet. How delicious it smells! Where did the eggs come from? Clara obliged. Kayla smiled. Why are you up so early? I could have made eggs myself. Sit down. The girl put the contents of the frying pan on plates. I want to go to the city. Why? Kevin looked at her questioningly. I've decided to stop hiding. I need to talk to my parents. Maybe now they'll hear me. I'm under no illusions, though. Dad's probably still mad. You're right. We'll have to talk sooner or later. He took the car keys out of his jacket. Here, it'll be quicker. Oh, And one more thing. He took out some money and put it on the table. Take it. It'll come in handy. Kevin, the girl looked at him gratefully. Thank you so much for your support. I will definitely come back. Kayla saw the doubt in Kevin's eyes, all the way she thought about what she would tell her parents, but the conversation didn't go the way she imagined. Kayla, her father shouted when she appeared on the doorstep. Where have you been all this time? No call, no message. My mother and I almost went crazy. My daughter, her mother wailed, hugging her. At least Nora called and said you were all right. We didn't know what to think. I needed to be alone. Too much had happened lately. The girl went to her room and started packing. Where are you going? Dad was surprised. I'm going to move out of your house. I am an adult. It's time to start living on my own. And where are you going to live? Dad grinned. Most importantly, on what? Don't worry, Dad. I'll work. I'm going to the country. I don't want to stay here anymore. I didn't know Matthew had decided to trade city life for country life. What's Matthew got to do with it? Kayla asked, still packing. It's over with him. I'm going with Kevin. He's got a house in the village, and we've been renovating it this week. Kevin's already got a job, and I'll find something to do. We'll be all right. Kayla, Mother cried out in horror. Listen to yourself. How can you seriously say such a thing? Are you going to live in the country, in this stable, surrounded by marginalized people? And this Kevin, how could he let you do repairs? Yes, he's a real exploiter. You're crazy. Who did you trade Matthew for? With him, you could have had a home, you wouldn't have had to work, and in a year you'd be giving us grandchildren. And now what? What are you going to become in a year in the country? My God, this is my daughter talking. Mom, I can do my own thing in the country, believe me. How can you think of self-development there? Do you think you'll be happier with Kevin? With that bastard? He's no match for Matthew. Matthew is such a subtle, intelligent boy. Father, why don't you say something? Evelyn turned to her husband in despair. Oh, yes, Kayla nodded. Matthew may be smart, but it's hard to argue with that. I just don't want to have to guess every time he walks out the door. Did he go to work or did he go to bed with another rich, great-aged lady like my Aunt Lara? You're wrong, daughter. Benjamin interjected. Matthew loves you. Yeah, he made a mistake, but that's okay. You don't know how much he regrets it. We all make mistakes sometimes. Don't be so hot. Learn to forgive. Come on, stop fooling around. We've played enough. You've shown your independence. We realize the little girl has grown up, but you have to stop. Come home. That's enough. You've had enough. The father tried to take the suitcases from his daughter, but she gently pulled him away. You still don't get it. I'm not joking or playing around. I'm serious about starting a new life. I'm tired of fitting in, of playing the good girl. Well, think about it. Why do you want to do all this? You have a home here. We're close by. The girl saw her father struggling to stay calm. What awaits you in the village? Kevin? Who the hell is he and where did he come from? You know him not well enough. Leave him alone. In a week he won't even remember you. And Matthew? You know each other perfectly well. You're hurt now, we understand, but it'll pass. You just give Matthew a chance to make it right. Do you hear me? Why don't you say anything? Dad, I can hear you perfectly well, and I know what you're going to say next. You think you're scaring me with the difficulties? What makes you think Kevin is exploiting me? Why on earth would you advise me to leave him? Because you think he's bad. Oh, right, because you have Matthew. He's an example of a fine family man who can provide a woman with anything her heart desires. I even know what's in store for me. I'll live at home, surrounded by beautiful furniture, all my wishes fulfilled at the click of a button. I'll give you grandchildren, a beautiful future. Only me and my children need Matthew no more than expensive furnishings. We'll give a certain status to a young, successful businessman. He will come when he wants, leave when he wants, and in between work and home, seek comfort in the arms of other women. What's next? Is this the life you parents have in store for your daughter? Kayla, the mother cried, we only care about you. Matthew is already like a son to us. We love him. And you're used to luxury and comfort. How can you live long in the country? Don't you think I know what you're worried about? Kayla shifted her gaze tiredly from her father to her mother. You hope to keep your business intact. You don't care how Matthew and I get along. You think you have the right to tell me who to live with, how to live my life, because you're going to provide us with money. And you remember to remind me of that every day, but I don't need it. Why? What do you need? What is there in this stinking hole but not in our house? What else do you need? My father didn't hold back anymore. I already have everything I need, a house, girlfriends I can just have tea with and have a heart-to-heart talk with. They don't care about my status or the thickness of my parents' wallet. Most importantly, I have a man I love who cares, who listens to me, not swatting me away like an annoying fly, and he loves me simply because I am me, not because my parents have money. Kayla, my mother splashed her hands. Are you crazy? That Kevin was bewitching you. Wait till you remember what I said when he forbids you to talk to your parents. Leave him, for God's sake. Listen to us. We've seen a lot of things in life, and you're inexperienced. You're easily fooled. Mom, do you realize that I'm really happy now? Daughter, father coughed. Because of you, our whole business is falling apart. Think of your mother and me. We've done so much for you. We can't lose everything because of your resentment. You have to go back to Matthew, or Lara will pull the money from the firm, and we'll deal with it. I was counting on your husband's father for support. I feel sorry for you, honestly. The girl looked sadly at her parents. I don't know when you became like this. Dad, you loved Mom, didn't you? You didn't even want to work with Aunt Lara before. And now what? Why is working with her and your own comfort more important to you than my happiness? She was quiet for a moment. I don't want to fight with you, but I'm not leaving Kevin. Let's end our useless argument here. I guess we're not speaking the same language yet. She was determined to leave. Kayla, don't go. Please stay. Her mother begged her. Okay, you'll go back to Kevin, but later. Stay at home. We'll think it over, talk it over, take our time. Don't do anything stupid. Please, sweetheart. Mom. Kayla stopped, hugged her. I love you, but I'm not staying. I hope someday you will understand me and forgive me. The girl got into the car, waved goodbye to her mother, glanced at the house. Her father's figure loomed in the window. Is she gone? Benjamin asked. Gone, hard, sighed Evelyn. What are we going to do now? The man went into his office, sat down at his desk, propped his head up with his hand, and said gloomily into space, Why did I get involved with Lara? I wouldn't owe anyone anything now. A heavy memory was weighing on him. Benjamin had berated himself more than once for agreeing to do business with his sister. At the time, it seemed to him, he had made the only right decision. Slowly we're building up sales. Benjamin paced the office. Funds are tight. You could take out a loan. The wife stammered. I'm all over these loans. The man sat down abruptly in his chair. Profit is only enough to cover debt obligations, and there is not enough left for development. But others also take loans for development. And the bank refused us this time because we already have a lot of loans. We need an investor. Then we could not only quickly close all the loans, but also increase turnover. The niche is profitable. Household appliances will always be in demand. So none of your fellow entrepreneurs will give you money. Maybe they would, but they would have to share the company's shares, and I wouldn't like that very much. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to mess with strangers. While Benjamin and Evelyn were discussing the problems of the family business, the doorbell rang. I'll get it. A woman came up. Lara? Benjamin heard his wife's surprised voice. What a surprise! What brings you here? And why alone? Where's your husband? Hello, brother. The young woman threw herself at the man's neck. Am I glad to see you? There you go, sister. He hugged her. Tell me how you are. I came to visit you. Husband? He's dead. I'm free again. Dead how? Evelyn gasped. Why? Why didn't you call? We would have come to support you. I beg you. The guest wrinkled her nose. Died of old age, it's already clear. Don't pretend you didn't know who I married. We were surprised at your choice, of course. He was a good husband to you and seemed to love you sincerely. And you must have loved him too. Otherwise, why did you marry him? What kind of love are you talking about, Evelyn? My husband was twice my age. His only virtue was that he was rich. And yet I shouldn't have told you. The lady of the house lamented. We are not strangers to him. We'd like to see him off to his final resting place too. There was someone to see him off without you. Lara waved her hand carelessly. So don't worry. The main thing is that I'm fabulously rich now. All movable and immovable property has gone to me. Lately, as I felt, I began to take interest in the affairs of the company, the owner of which was my husband. So I can handle it. I have reliable people. You must be tired from the road. Evelyn caught on. Come on, I'll show you to your room. We'll meet in the kitchen in half an hour. The woman quickly assembled a festive table for her sister's arrival. Benjamin opened a bottle of wine. So, tell me, brother, how are you doing? How's business? Sitting down at the table and eating, Lara asked. Not bad, but I wish it were better. Benjamin frowned. What's holding you back? Lack of money. The bank refused to give me a loan, and I wanted to buy more goods to cover my debts. Trade is going well, but there's very little money left for development. So they're just stagnating. Listen, brother. Lara clapped him on the shoulder. I'm ready to invest in your firm. You? Benjamin was surprised. Why, I have the money, so what will they be idle? We'll make a family business out of it, you know. What do you say, brother? I gotta think about it. Think. I'm in no hurry. But I won't wait long. The money has to work. Benjamin thought all night and called his sister in the morning. Lara, I agree. Good. She was happy. I'll tell my lawyers to take care of the contract, and we'll meet to discuss the terms. A week later, Benjamin sat in the negotiating room and scrutinized the contract. Lara, I don't get it, do I? The man reread the terms of the deal over and over again. Now you own the majority of the firm? Why are you scared? The woman laughed. We are our own people. The fact that I have the majority of the business in my hands is logical. I have invested my money. I've paid off all your loans, and then, it's only on paper, I have a higher percentage, but you are still in charge here. I'm not even gonna get involved in running the firm. It's yours. You should have known, Benjamin thought, that I was getting into bondage, but I gave in to persuasion and promises, and now I'm paying for my cowardice, and what could I do? At the time, working with Lara was too tempting to calculate the risks, and I didn't want to think that the whole thing would backfire on me. I still had the business, I had plenty of work, and I had a family to feed. I was waiting for my daughter to grow up to strengthen my position. And this is how it turned out. Benjamin stood up, went to the bar, poured cognac into a glass and drank it. What to do? How to bring back the rebellious daughter? Meanwhile, Kayla bought groceries, dishes, and all the little things she lacked in the household and got into the car. Suddenly, the phone rang. Kayla, hello. She heard the cheerful voice of her friend. How are you? You're not in touch at all. You're in your village, and you don't show your face. Nora, it's so good to hear from you. I'm just in town, but I'm on my way back to the village. Where are you? I want to see you. Is there a coffee shop nearby? Why don't we sit and talk for a while? Okay, I'll wait for you. Half an hour later, the friends were already sitting in the nearest cafe. I can't get used to Kevin, Kayla admitted. He's nothing like Matthew. What do you mean different? Nora wondered. He does all the housework with ease. I'm used to having helpers around the house, and Kevin can do everything himself. You know, he can even cook better than me. He can't be bothered to clear the table, do the dishes. So it's good that you don't like it. I don't get it. Is he a homebody who doesn't socialize? On the contrary, he's new at his job and his coworkers already like him. Does he offend you? No way. Kayla made big eyes. He is ready to carry me in his arms, fulfills all my wishes. Friend, you are the happiest woman. Nora exclaimed, I envy you. Thank God you got rid of that pompous, self-righteous peacock, your Matthew. What a life you'd have had with him. Nothing but tears. I suppose you're right. She glanced furtively at her watch. Can't wait to get back to Kevin. She asked with a smile, I'll admit it, honestly. Yeah. Kayla blushed. Go. I'm happy for you. Say hi to Kevin. I'll be sure to come visit. The friends hugged each other warmly, said goodbye, and Kayla left. The days flew by. Kayla, one night after dinner, Kevin suggested, why don't we go for a walk by the river? I'd love to. The girl loved their evening walks. How nice is it here? She said dreamily, looking at the thick fog that was rising from the river. Kevin put his arm around Kayla and smiled. Maybe your parents had gotten better since last time? He asked hopefully. I wouldn't count on it. Kayla answered. Besides, the situation with Matthew hasn't changed. My aunt isn't interested in him anymore, but she is interested in working with his father, and his father will only agree to work with her if Matthew and I get married or if he gets 15% of the company. There's no way his father's gonna go for that. It's a vicious circle. My parents are still mad at me. Kayla, I know we're not at a fancy restaurant or even a restaurant. Anyway, whatever. But I wanted to ask you something. About what? She smiled. Will you marry me? He asked, holding out a ring box to the girl. Kevin. The girl looked at him with tear-stained eyes. Of course, I would love to be your wife. Even without your parents' consent? Even without my parents' consent. I love you very much. I love you too. Kevin put his arms around her and kissed her hard. One day Kayla saw a strange car in the window that stopped in front of their house. Who was it? The girl wondered. The car is unfamiliar. Kevin did not warn her that we would have guests. To her horror, Matthew got out of the car. He looked around the house condescendingly and headed for the gate. Why did you come here? Kayla stepped out onto the porch and folded her arms across her chest, signaling that this guest was not welcome. How'd you find us? Jesus, Kayla! What's with the manners? You've only lived here for a short time, and you've forgotten how to behave? Guests should be made welcome. As far as I know, that's how it's done in the village. Give me a hug. At least pretend you're happy to see me. You're not welcome, and it's better if you leave now. I beg you, don't pretend that you're not glad to see me. Let me come into the house. We're not going to talk in the street. I don't want the neighbors to witness our conversation. I don't have time to receive uninvited guests. Tell me what you want here and leave. Don't give yourself any illusions. No one was expecting you here. I don't recognize my fiancé. I'm not your fiancé. Fie, Kayla. Country life is not good for you. Quite the opposite. I've learned to see through liars and traitors, and this is one of them, and I've lost the rose-colored glasses you can't put back on my eyes. Oh, come on, swaggered the young man, easily pushing her aside and walking into the house. Stop resenting what was, what is past. We are not strangers. Parents are friends. We are almost relatives. We have a lot in common, and if it were not for an unfortunate oversight, long ago would have become husband and wife, and all would be happy. And you have nothing here. He looked around. It's cozy. I didn't expect it. Although the house is a bit small, of course. Do you really want to live like this? Have you satisfied your curiosity? Now get out. You've become so rude, and I came for you. Honestly, I thought you'd come running to me first. I was wrong. I didn't realize that my gentle, calm, modest bride has a temper. Did you show it? I understood and realized everything and even came to apologize. Tell me you forgive me. Well, come to me. I missed you. He tried to hug her and kissed her. Kayla pushed him away. I see you still don't get it. Kayla looked contemptuously at her ex-fiancé. Did you really drive all the way out here and expect me to turn to you for a hug? How presumptuous are you, you scoundrel? I have too much self-respect to forgive treason. I really loved you. How blind was I? I believed that Dad would do the right thing, but no one even mentioned love. Don't you have any dignity at all if you agreed to marry a girl you don't love? Don't you care who you marry? Why do you let your father decide who you marry? Who am I talking to? She grinned sadly. All you care about is profit. If necessary, you'll marry a bald devil to please your father for fear of losing money. Honey, you're out of your mind. Matthew tried to change her mind. Of course I love you now. Otherwise, I would never have agreed to this marriage. You're wrong. Don't accuse me of all the deadly sins. You make me sound like a monster. Yes, I have faults. I'm ready to admit it. But I will improve. Just come with me. Believe me, I really loved you. Remember how good we were together? Loved you and cheated on your wedding day. What kind of love is that? You're wasting your time trying to convince me to come back. At least have some dignity. Honey, we've played enough games. Yes, I was wrong, but you've already punished me, gotten back at me with Kevin. He smirked. I'm not gonna make a jealous scene. Stop pouting. You get ugly when you're angry. I love you. He tried to kiss her again. Kayla pushed Matthew away and slapped him hard. At that moment, the door opened and Kevin walked in. What's going on in here? I see we have company. Kevin furrowed his eyebrows, eyeing his buddy warily. You're just in time. The girl was pleased. I've been telling Matthew that you proposed to me, and we're getting married in a couple of days, and we don't have time for guests. What wedding? What about us? Stunned Matthew. There is no we. Get out. Kayla cut him off. How many times do I have to tell you? I want to forget everything. You have no idea how hard it was for me to erase the image of you and Lara in my parents' bedroom. But I did it. You can't just send me away like that. It's our wedding. No one's canceling anything. You have to come home. Your parents are waiting for you. It's not my problem. Kayla said firmly, my home is here. I'm not marrying you anyway, and I don't care about your business. You can tell everyone concerned. I will not allow myself to be made a pawn so that you betting on me can win a lucrative game and my parents will someday realize that love is more precious than anything else in the world. You've ruined everything, yelled Matthew in despair. Running around with your love, who needs it? Do you really like living here? Slaving from dawn to dusk and from paycheck to paycheck. What can it get you, Kevin? I can give you everything. What does he have that I don't? He knows how to be faithful. Kayla answered calmly, I'm not coming back to you. You're going to wish you'd come with me. Matthew looked angrily first at Kayla, then at Kevin. A year from now, you'll be sick of this life, and you'll want to come back, but it'll be too late, and then I'll watch you beg and plead to be taken back. I'm sorry for you, Matthew, the girl said sympathetically. The young man turned around, kicked his foot in the door, went outside, got into his car, and a minute later, only the dust from the wheels of the car reminded him of the unpleasant meeting. I'm sorry you had to listen to the nonsense Matthew was talking. Kayla walked over and gave Kevin a hug. I have a proposition. What is it? Kevin hesitated and said, Let's get ready for the wedding. Kayla laughed merrily, clung to him even tighter. I'm the luckiest woman in the world. Kevin leaned down to place a long, loving kiss on her lips.
Subscribe and click the bell. While some people are barely making ends meet, others are complaining about the resorts and expensive cars. Stephen, the only son of the owner of a chain of hotels and a fleet of pleasure boats, managed to join it all by the age of 13. Egypt. Sorrow. Grimacing when a classmate bragged about an upcoming trip. This Egypt sucks. Nothing interesting about those pyramids. The fifth one was okay. Stephen told me about his trip to Thailand. And Phuket is a green bore. The classmates whispered about it. And John, a famous wit, ironically said our Stephen to listen to. So grow up in a wealthy family, what a challenge. But there is some truth in it, shrugged Lisa. Stephen has long ago lost the joy of even the same trip to Egypt or Thailand. He is no longer surprised by anything. Boredom, interrogation, security, that's all emotions. Yes, John nodded. The Wallace family was one of the richest in town. Their family name was not only in the ears of the rich, but also of the average citizen. There was nothing strange about that. After all, a well-known businessman in the city offered hotel rooms and pleasure boats of different price categories. That means that his services could be used not only by the wealthy, but also by the poor people. Both those and others were treated to the highest standards, and there were no dissatisfied people. Therefore, many people repeatedly returned to the hotels and took boat trips. John Wallace inherited the hotel business from his father. At that time, it was only a couple of hotels. In 10 years, the business has grown to a whole network of luxury hotels with different degrees of stardom. But Mr. Wallace did not think to stop there. He reasonably assumed that guests of the city would be interested in exploring local attractions. But a mere sightseeing tour seemed like yesterday to him. What about a boat ride? It was said and done. To begin with, 3 boats were purchased. The calculation was right. Boat rides were in high demand, which meant that new boats had to be purchased. Now there is a park of 27 boats at the service of residents and guests of the city. The future was predetermined for many years ahead. He graduates from the institute and enters the business. And later, of course, he would inherit the family business. Did Stephen want to go into business? It's hard to say. The guy didn't like boredom. His soul constantly demanded a holiday. And business is, above all, routine. But being not a stupid guy, Stephen already learned in elementary school that it is thanks to business he will be able to maintain his life at the level to which he is accustomed. But then, the hotel business means interaction with foreign partners, trips around the world to exchange experiences and other interesting events, including international ones. All this gives an opportunity to minimize the routine. Growing up in a fabulously wealthy family was fun, easy, and enjoyable. The Wallaces traveled extensively. They had real estate not only within the country, but also abroad. And not ordinary, but elite. When there was a family feast to be had, not an entree of chefs from the best restaurants, maids, designers, musicians, and sometimes Amadou. At every Stephen birthday party, there were animators and, on occasion, entertainers. All the boy's wishes were guessed and fulfilled at the snap of his fingers. What can we say? The childhood of Stephen Wallace was cloudless, except that in this cloudless childhood was just unbearably lonely. The father, although he did not neglect communication with his son, was not much at home. Kathy, Stephen's mother, went around the salons, stores, and social events, leaving him in the care of a nanny. Besides, it was not safe to be the child of wealthy parents. When Stephen was put in kindergarten, Mr. Wallace hired a security guard for him. God forbid they steal him for ransom. Stephen could not help but realize that he was a tidbit for those who would make a fortune out of other people's misfortune. So he tolerated the presence of the guards without complaint. Though, God knows, he was terribly embarrassed in front of his peers. To go outside and splash around in a puddle. But no, that was a pleasure Stephen couldn't afford. Just in case some homegrown paparazzi takes a picture of John Wallace's only hair splashing in a puddle. That would be embarrassing. So in everything we touch, he's Wallace's son. And that says it all. Stephen has entered the 11th grade, and one of the family's most pressing issues is his education. In this regard, the Wallaces, unlike most rich people, gave the boy complete freedom of choice. "I'm not going to pressure you in any way," John said. "The choice is yours. Wherever you want to go, that's where you go. In fact, my plans for education do not conflict with your wishes," said Stephen, smiling. "I want to enroll in hospitality management. I've already looked into it. Is that really what you want? Well, why not? Shrug our family business. It's pretty interesting. So why not explore it in detail? You know what I mean," Dad said approvingly. "Yeah, you're right. It's very interesting, and I'm proud of you." "Yes, there's nothing to be proud of yet," replied Stephen modestly. "You don't say," John replied cheerfully. "The fact that you're showing zeal is something to be proud of. I'm sure you will succeed." "Thank you for your confidence," smiled the son. "There's one thing I'm not sure about." "What's that?" "I'm not good at math." Stephen waved his hands. "And at the university I'm interested in, they study it." "Is that a problem nowadays?" exclaimed Wallace Sr. "Let's hire a tutor. It's a piece of cake." After studying several candidates on the website of the agency providing services in St. Petersburg, Wallace decided to stop at Adriana. Reviews about the 32-year-old tutor were already impressive. Yes, and a red diploma from the math department of the local state university was a weighty plus. At the interview, the young woman showed herself a real professional. Besides, the society of a young and beautiful woman is much more pleasant than that of a dull person of uncertain age wearing old women's glasses. Anyway, Adriana's candidacy was approved. When Adriana graduated from high school, the question of further education was not even a question. In fact, it was solved even when Adriana was in elementary school. Of course, the Pedagogical Institute. The girl answered her mother's question, where she planned to enter. Sofia Semyonovna nodded. What is true is true. As a child, Adriana was very fond of playing school. Besides, she was an excellent public speaker and could find an approach even to the most difficult person. So Adriana had a vocation for pedagogy. And if it is a favored business, then God himself commanded to sow the reasonable, good, and eternal. After graduating from the institute with a red diploma, the girl found a job in one of the municipal schools of the city. Not the limit of dreams, but to start a career is not so bad. But unfortunately, having worked at the school for a year, she fell under the reduction in force. Adriana was worried, and then decided to get a second education. thanks to the university's admission commissions had already started to work. As a result, Adriana became a student of the math department. When she had an internship at the school, the principal almost immediately paid attention to her, and it was no coincidence that the elderly mathematician could not retire for one simple reason: there was no replacement. Adriana seemed to the principal the worthwhile candidate. In addition to her main job, she was engaged in tutoring. The salary of a young specialist left much to be desired, and tutoring services. Besides, with 2 higher education degrees, the pleasure was not cheap. Adriana had heard a lot about the entrepreneur Wallace. The young teacher could not know what kind of character he had, but it seemed to her that Wallace was an extraordinary man. When he wrote Adriana on the website and offered to work with him, the girl could not believe that it was true. Such cooperation unequivocally promised good money, and who knows, recommendations among people of the same circle. Yes, there would be a whole line of people lining up for her. You wish. She pulled herself. He hasn't hired you yet, and you're already making plans. Wallace, exclaimed Betty's friend and coworker. You're growing up, my friend. But I won't say go before I jump, smiled Adriana. But being invited to an interview is already half the success. But I bet you would. A friend said. Listen, maybe you should have a Stephen with him. But hello, here we are. I'm going to work for him, not have an affair. But one doesn't preclude the other. A sly wink from my friend. And they, the rich, such entertainment is very much welcomed. How do you know? Adriana snorted. Betty, being the spouse of Nice, the head of the mine site, did not need additional earnings. So her advice puzzled Adriana a little. Not that I know of. Her friend spoke slowly. But my cousin works as an administrator in a sauna, and she gets rich men in her files almost every day. Well, you compared. Adriana replied with a grin. They just have such an association. If a woman works in a sauna, she must be ready for anything. And you cannot change my mind that I, say, just earn money. And I'm a teacher. I'm supposed to be serious. Oh, but what can I do? Or else I waved my hands and, having loaded, added, and I'm not in the mood for romance right now. It's fine by me. You're funny. Nice. Adriana sighed. She'd broken up with Robert not so long ago. That love had gotten Adriana in a lot of trouble, but the young woman had only recently decided to end the relationship. They met at a time when Adriana was getting a second degree. She was in her 3rd year, and Robert was finishing graduate school. After graduating from graduate school, he stayed on to teach at the university. It was then that Robert suggested to Adriana that they should move in together. The young people had been cohabiting for 5 years. It could not be said that the fact of cohabitation so strained Adriana. However, deep down she really wanted Robert to propose a legal marriage. And what loving woman wouldn't want that? Adriana talked about having a child, but her lover said it was too soon. Robert, but I'm already 28. She noticed after a year of living together. Some women my age have more than one child. So what? And if all the girls your age run off to drown themselves, will you follow them? I couldn't think of anything smarter. Adriana burst into flames. What did I say wrong? Because I'm not chasing anyone, she explained. That's what I'm getting at, very early. Actually, at my age it's not very early, but just right. In the West, they have their firstborn after 30, Robert said. What did you say about drowning yourself? Adriana grinned at her roommate. But what's the use? It's a vicious circle. She still repeatedly talked about the child, but there is still there. And before she knew it, Adriana was celebrating her 32nd birthday. Lovely. You shouldn't eat him, Betty said. He just doesn't want a baby. That's the whole story. You're not gonna get a ring or a stamp in your passport. Meanwhile, the biological clock is ticking. So, honey, get out of here. There's nothing there for you. And if you want a baby so badly, find another man with your looks, it's no problem. So tell me, what is it? Adriana waved her hand. You don't know your own worth. Adriana was an attractive girl of short height and figure with a lush mane of dark brown almond hair, prominent eyes, the color of strong tea, and expressive lips. Unless a lazy man said to her, "With that kind of looks you can find yourself the kind of fiancé you want. And you're stuck with that rainmaker." Adriana smiled guiltily. "I love him. What can I do?" But the moment came when things reached a critical point. One day, Robert caught her packing. "Where are you going?" he asked in surprise. "A business trip." "No, Robert," she replied in a vindictive tone. "I'm leaving." "What do you mean?" Stunned lover. Just like that. Adriana waved her hands. "Interesting, interesting," said Robert. "And what was it that didn't suit us?" "It would be very interesting to hear," she grinned seriously. "It's sort of been said more than once." "Not enough money, Robert." "What money? Have I ever told you about money? I kind of make money too. But if you really don't remember that, then what's the point of this conversation?" And it hit me, Robert. "I get that you get it. Do you have someone?" "Of course I do. How could I not have guessed?" he exclaimed. Adriana shrugged her shoulders and let him think what he wanted. In a way, it was flattering. A couple of weeks later, the teacher received an invitation from Mr. Wallace. 3 days after the interview, Adriana began her tutoring duties. To be honest, she was a little afraid of the first meeting with her mentee. It was no secret to the young woman that children of rich parents often behave arrogantly. She herself, however, had not yet encountered them, but more than once she had heard about such an attitude from tutors from the agency. For such outlets, a tutor is something like a servant. That's what something is, not someone. But what is it? Adriana once heard a story about how the 15-year-old son of a rich businessman, I think the owner of a meat packing plant, offered a young tutor money for sexual favors. Do not agreed. And the teenager's mother, having learned about what happened, wrote a statement on the teacher. Since the boy was only 15, the tutor faced a very real term under Article 134. However, in the end, the young teacher got off with compulsory labor and a signature not to leave. But she had to say goodbye to her pedagogical practice for 5 years. From this story, Adriana concluded that it is not worth it to give in to provocations, although such nonsense in her head is simply unthinkable. Intimacy with a student. Ew, that's disgusting. Before the first session of S. Wallace Jr., Adriana studied his social networking profiles. The pages were not closed, which characterized Stephen Wallace as a man of open mind. The heir to 1 billion, if not 1 trillion, turned out to be a tall and lean young man with shoulder-length dark curly hair that he gathered into a ponytail. The only offspring of a hotel and boat owner, definitely loved flashy parties and foreign trips. But what was strange was that he didn't have a single picture of him with a girl. Maybe he's gay, Adriana thought. But why should I care? Judging by the pictures on the wall, the boy was a fan of soccer and expensive cars. All the walls of Stephen's room were covered with pictures of famous soccer players, mostly David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo, and cars of mostly outlandish models. Adriana looked around the room with interest, and the guy, judging by his facial expression, liked it very much. "Hello," his tutor greeted him politely. "My name is Adriana." "Hello, I'm Stephen." With a smile, the boy answered her and suddenly asked her, "Are you interested in cars too?" "Well, not really interested," answered Adriana. "But very interesting models. Do you really like it?" Stephen perked up. The guy clearly lacks socialization. It flashed through the tutor's mind. "Do you like it?" She smiled and nodded, not without surprise, noting that her mentee didn't seem to have an ounce of arrogance in him. "But now, we'll get down to the business I'm here for. First, let's check your level of knowledge. It's disappointingly low." "Disarm him," Stephen smiled. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here now." "That's understandable," Adriana nodded. "But still, I suggest you do a little test. We'll determine your level of knowledge, and then we'll decide where to go from here." Okay. The results of the test were truly dismal. The 11th grader was at the level of a 6th grader. Yes, I'll have to work as hard as Pythagoras. Wallace Jr. smiled guiltily. And even to a classmate, thought Adriana, and said aloud, well, do not worry, not God's burn pots. I promise to do my best and hope to be as helpful as possible. Let's get started. The class was at 200 hours and was paid by the hour. When Wallace Sr. transferred an amount to Adriana's card, she was surprised. But that's a lot. It's fine. It's fine. I've been watching you from my office and I can tell you're a real professional, but not a professional. But don't ever say that again. Her employer cut her off. Even if you don't feel like a professional, you don't have to show the look. A person goes to a professional and expects appropriate fulfillment of the task at hand. Yeah. That's just for future reference. Personally, you didn't disappoint me. Thank you. Adriana was born. What are you thankful for? The entrepreneur shrugged. Thank you for your good work. After seeing the tutor off, Stephen thought deeply. She was good. What can I say? For the son of an entrepreneur, beautiful girls were certainly not a novelty. But Adriana, unlike the glamorous dolls in his circle, had a natural beauty. She had a very beautiful face, luxurious dark brown hair, and the figure was just a looker. From the resume tutor, Stephen learned that Adriana Andreevna was 32 years old, but she looked no more than 23. The guy was willing to bet that if her strict suit was replaced by a brightly colored dressy or t-shirt and jeans, the tutor would look even younger. The guy suddenly imagined him and Adriana strolling through the park, and then what would happen next? The rich man's hair didn't think. He didn't have any racy thoughts in his head. There were some thoughts, though. And what boy his age wouldn't have them? Besides, Stephen was ruthless in chasing them away. Was Stephen Wallace a success with the ladies? There was no clear answer to that question. On the one hand, the girls found him quite an attractive guy. The fact that Stephen wasn't stupid was also a plus. But when he started ranting about how bored he was in Thailand, Egypt, or anywhere else, and the Volkswagen is for Beggar's Ford, they wanted to crack Stephen over the head. The girls, as well as the guys, thought he was drawing. And Wallace Jr. knew it. But it didn't occur to them that Stephen wasn't even thinking about getting in. The guy was really bored with everything, in connection with which he associated himself neither more nor less with Eugene Onegin. Once he told his father about it, and the latter only laughed with modesty. This is clearly not going to die. Eugene Onegin it is. Jokes are jokes, but Stephen, nevertheless, very much wanted variety in life. But where to find it? The young man did not even suspect that very soon diversity will not make him wait long. And how did he feel about it? Waiting for an answer, Betty glared at Adriana. But she shrugged her shoulders after a moment's silence. He's just a normal teenager, like a lot of teenagers, but from a very rich family. And you know what surprised me? He doesn't have the snobbery of the rich kids. What's your student got to do with it, you fool? Betty laughed. I mean his father. What about his father? I got nothing to surprise you with. A regular rich businessman, by the way, who paid more than the agreed-upon amount. So maybe it's a trick, a wink and a friend. God be with you. Adriana waved her hand. He almost gave me a lecture about positioning yourself as a professional, even if you are not sure of your professional skills. But then you should have seen his wife. When I walked out on them, Wallace's wife drove in a luxury foreign car, sparkling with new diamonds. Not like you and me, anyway. So what? Betty said ironically. We know these FIFO with their diamonds. Both husbands and wives have someone. You know all that about everyone. Adriana grinned. You bet I do, Adriana. But do you really have nothing to say about him? I've only seen him. Not much. He sent me a transfer when I left and told me how to present myself. That's about it. I see. Mrs. Betty, realizing that she couldn't get anything more out of her nosy friend. And you certainly didn't ask Mr. Wallace any questions. Adriana wondered what questions should I have asked. Well, about business, for one. Betty, for a moment. I came to see him as a tutor for his son. She replied with a chuckle. Why the hell would I want to know about his business? Just for general knowledge. What would he appreciate? Why should he? For me, the main thing is for the employer to appreciate my professional skills, not interest in his person. Oh, come on. Betty waved her hand in annoyance. You don't know how to network, do you? I wasn't going to. Adriana parried. He's the employer, and I'm the door. That's it. I don't like to make eye contact. Betty rolled her eyes, letting her friend know she didn't share her point of view. But she didn't care. Stephen Wallace suddenly appeared before Adriana's eyes. The guy has really smart eyes, by the way. What's that about? She asked herself, but she couldn't find an answer. A week passed, and Adriana was pleased to note that her mentee was making good progress. John doubled her salary and promised to recommend Adriana to his wealthy acquaintances. How cool you are, Mishka, Betty said respectfully. Stephen's 16th birthday was 2 weeks away, and his father asked if he had any ideas for a birthday party. I think we've run out of ideas, he shrugged. No way, John shook his head, looking intently at his son. You know what's valuable in a good businessman? Creativity. Yeah, creativity. The ability to develop new ideas and, accordingly, to realize them. That's just as valuable as entrepreneurship. By the way, keep that in mind for the future. I will, nodded Stephen. But I still don't have any ideas. Not at all, not at all, not at all. The guy waved his hands. I see. But then it's time to remember that 2 heads are better than 1, said John. Together, father and son developed a script for Stephen's 16th birthday. Dad, said the lad hesitantly. What is encouraging? Smiled the father. Any other ideas? Not really an idea, Stephen hesitated. But I want to invite Adriana, he replied, embarrassed. Not if you don't mind. Why is that, I wonder? Should I mind? Surprised Wallace Sr., it's your birthday. And if she accepts your invitation, why shouldn't she? Why wouldn't she accept it? For example, she may have some business of her own planned, shrugged John. Or she has a man who won't let go. It's not that big of a deal. Dad, what's the point in guessing? Stephen said reasonably. Our business is to offer. Stephen, you're growing up. Adriana complimented him. Thank you for your kind words. But I think it's to your credit. The student replied with a smile. Adriana, I want to invite you to my birthday party. My birthday. She was surprised. Well, yes, nodded Stephen. No, if you have your own plans or a jealous husband, I understand and will not be offended. I do not have any husband, with a sigh answered Adriana, and immediately scolded and himself. What does he need my private life for? Come on, distrustfully exclaimed the ward, and immediately bought his tongue. That is, I wanted to say everything is normal, assured the tutor, and quite unexpectedly added, I will definitely come. In the evening, taking a bath with her favorite scent of lilac, Adriana indulged in reflection. The young woman did not fully understand what had made her accept her student's invitation. No matter how respectfully the Wallace treated Adriana, she realized that the tutor was just another member of their staff, and she was part of the entourage. But then why on earth would she be invited to a birthday party? And suddenly, Adriana realized this kid, despite his father's 1 million, was hard to call happy. And he was probably very lonely. That was why Stephen had invited Adriana, and she in turn had accepted his invitation for the same reason. To be fair, Adriana did break through a few times, to call and say she couldn't make it. The young woman's hand reached for her cell phone several times, but she never dared to say no. When Adriana told about Stephen's invitation to her friend, the latter splashed her hands. Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And don't tell me you said no. You realize I didn't. Adriana said mockingly, and you should have. Betty said emphatically. Remember, friend, good for you. Listen, do you know what you're going to wear yet? Adriana said slowly. She had just realized that she hadn't thought about what she was going to wear. What would you do without Aunt Betty? After all, you're going to a party in a rich house, which means you have to dress appropriately. You know, silk, satin, diamonds. Where would I get diamonds? Adriana grinned. But that's just figurative. My point is that you need to be on the level, not to make a mess. You think I don't understand that? Why didn't you think about the outfit? Adriana shrugged her shoulders. I've been so wrapped up. There are still 4 days until my birthday. So I would have thought about an outfit sooner or later. I'd think about an outfit before I blew Betty away. You don't have to think about it. You have to think it through. Oh, you'd say it's a lot of thought. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but no one's gonna pay any attention to me. I'm sure the invited women will be wearing dresses that cost 3 times my salary. But let me disagree, because it's not the dress, it's the woman. But these rich sons will wear their Versus creations. It's not the woman they'll remember, it's the dress. What's the use of a brand name if it fits like a saddle on a cow? Well, as for you, so on you, and a sack of potatoes will look like an exquisite outfit. Well, you just gave a whole lecture. Adriana exclaimed, remembering Wallace Sr., but frankly, I didn't understand what you were trying to say. Never mind. Betty replied cheerfully. Anya, shall we go where? What do you mean? Where? She snorted. To shopping, of course. Where else? Time permitting. I don't feel like it. Adriana shook her head. Oh no. Betty was determined, and when she was determined, her opponent didn't stand a chance. So Adriana let herself be persuaded and ended up with a breathtakingly beautiful silver-colored dress with an open back, a neckline, a window at the chest, and a slit almost to the hip. Just right, Mila said approvingly as she came out of the fitting room. Seductive, but not a hint of vulgarity. Adriana looked at herself critically in the mirror. The dress, of course, sat as flush as if it had been waiting for her, but she thought the outfit was a little too daring. This wasn't a social gathering or New Year's Eve. Adriana, I assure you, all the men's eyes will be on you, assured her knowledgeable friend. And so it was when Adriana entered the banquet hall. The men looked at her with marked interest, and half of the women were overcome with inferiority complexes. Who's that? Christina asked. A socialite and a friend of the celebrant's mother. Is it Stephen's tutor? Answered Kathy, not without envy, thinking what a gorgeous figure she had. And this she hid under loose shrines and closed dresses. Kathy wondered. Silly woman. Wallace's wife was in great shape, thanks to gym yoga, special massages. But this girl's figure was top-notch. Tutor Stephen, and girlfriend. And you're not afraid of what? Of what? Christina's eyes rounded. Yes, you look at her, this lady only in erotic movies to star in and are not afraid that she seduces your son. What is this nonsense? No, it's not nonsense. The woman objected. You remember Oksana Zolotic, don't you? That's the one who after the divorce in Spain left. And she is the same. Nodded Christina. So she and her ex hired an English tutor for her son. And one day Oksana accidentally stumbled upon a racy correspondence in social networking, which their Sam led with the tutor. And guess what? Purely by accident, grinned Kathy. How's that? It seems that the guy did not close the page on Marcelo, the socialite's forehead. I don't remember the details. You don't look at them as educators. Ladies don't get lost. In the end, it turned out that Sam has been sleeping with his tutor for 2 months. Nightmare, Mrs. Wallace shook her head. A nightmare, nodded Christina. And what did the parents do? Mrs. Wallace asked. What about the parents? Parents reported it to the school and law enforcement. Serves them right. And what was it that soothed your heart? The tutor didn't deny the obvious. And then, the court suspended her for 2 years and banned her from teaching for 3 years. Not enough. I'd shamelessly give her more. How bloodthirsty are you? Kathy laughed, laughingly, but if I were you and John, I'd pay close attention to that lady. I don't know. Kathy shrugged. John says she's a real professional, and I've always trusted his judgment. And if he says so, it must be true. Who can argue with that? Except that professionalism doesn't stop him. Oh, but don't push it. This girl, but did not give away her desire to cut down. She dresses strictly, and Kathy Acer put down half a word. Right in the middle of the hall, Stephen and his teacher danced a medley of tango, waltz, and some other dances. Are you now going to argue that your tutor has no intention of seducing your son? Patronize us that we do, Christina said. Kathy was speechless. What is she doing? She thought angrily. I must say, the duet was just great, and some of the guests began to applaud. And one of Wallace's partners, the famous ladies' man Pavel Zhukov, asked what kind of a beautiful nymph is this? Why? I don't know. John grinned, but he could not know her, for this lady was not of our party. And who is she, this tutor? The kid's got a math problem, and he's applying next year. So I found him this beautiful girl. By the way, Stephen has started to show interest in the Queen of Science. And the main thing is that now it's not so bad, said the Beatles. Beautiful, seductive, and smart. Just a treasure. I'd like to get to know her better. Rick, you are in your repertoire. Wallace wagged his finger. Are you charming today? Stephen said playfully, much to the embarrassment of the tutor. Thank you, of course, but you're exaggerating. Not at all, smiled the student. Are you seeing each other right now? Here we go. The dress is brilliant. Adriana laughed. I'm not talking about dresses, I'm talking about you. The young woman could smell the scent of expensive perfume and elite alcohol. Stephen was different now. Alcohol changes a man, she thought. It is not without reason that they say that what is on the mind of a sober man is on the tongue of a drunk. When, to Adriana's great relief, the dance was over, Stephen thanked her and turned away. The tutor took her place at the table, and suddenly she noticed that everyone was looking at her with curiosity. Adriana took a convulsive gulp of champagne, and although the piece did not fit in her throat, she took a bite of the salty tablet. Adriana, can I talk to you for a minute? She heard a voice behind her. The crumbs of the pill stuck mercilessly in her throat, and the young woman ran out. The voice belonged to Mrs. Wallace, whom Adriana was a little afraid of. Besides, it wasn't hard to guess what the conversation was about. It was all about the dance, of course. I hear you, Adriana replied nonchalantly, thinking, after all, I have nothing to fear. It's only a dance. Maybe we should step back, Kathy suggested in a social tone. All right, if you say so. The women went out into the conservatory and Kathy said, Adriana, I won't beat around the bush. You are a very attractive girl, but you are first and foremost a teacher. So I would ask you to behave in a manner befitting a teacher. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, come on. Wallace raised her voice. You know what you're talking about. There's a lot of stories like that out there these days. I just don't know what you're all counting on. Where do you come from? Adriana felt a wave of anger wash over her. Why the hell hadn't she done anything wrong? We'll take it from there. The important thing is not to lose it. Here's the thing. Kathy, I'm sorry. I don't know your middle name. The lady of the house. Just like me, Adriana mentally noted. And she continued with dignity. Well, Kathy, I know what you mean. I just don't understand what the stories you mentioned have to do with me. A guy asked me to dance. It was in front of guests and parents, not in private. So it was just a dance for him, nothing more. Kathy looked thoughtfully at the young woman and thought, she's right. They were nowhere near privacy or anything else for that matter. But her friend's story made it hard to believe that the tutor was not going to get intimate with Stephen. Kathy had seen with her own eyes the tutor smiling at her son. Flirting it looked like, or was it just a polite smile? Either way, prevention never hurts. So, Adriana, Wallace said firmly, was it a dance or something else? But you were not on your best behavior. I hope it won't happen again. Oh, there was so much Adriana wanted to say to this desirable person. like the fact that she didn't give a damn about her son. But since it was none of Adriana's business, she remained silent. So the young woman confined herself to apologizing and promising to behave with more restraint. But there was no need for more restraint. After sitting at the table for about 15 minutes, Adriana was going home so soon. John asked in surprise, "But you haven't even tasted the cake, and we invited you." "I'd love to," said the tutor sincerely, "but I don't feel well." "Well, that's a shame." The next day was Saturday, and Adriana allowed herself to wallow in the warmth of her insoles until 11 o'clock to chase away the remnants of sleep. The young woman stretched sweetly and stood up. Adriana started each morning with a glass of water and lemon. She sat at the table and, sipping the unpretentious drink, indulged in thoughts not in vain and doubted whether or not to go to the birthday party. The young woman thought. In essence, nothing terrible happened. But read the moral. Mrs. Wallace, it's okay, isn't it? Kathy had behaved as any other mother in her position would have behaved. Besides, Wallace was right that there really are a lot of liberated teachers out there. And Adriana didn't know what was on her mind. But why does it feel so dirty? Simply because it's unpleasant. The young woman's thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of a cell phone. Looking at the display, she raised her eyebrows in bewilderment. Robert, the one who was not expected. I wonder what he wants. It seemed that everything had been said to each other. At first, Adriana didn't want to answer, but curiosity got the better of her. "Hello," she answered expressionlessly. "Adriana, how is your precious?" In a cheerful voice, the ex-brother-in-law asked. "With your prayers?" The young woman said in the same fearless voice. "Why so unkind?" "Robert, what did you want?" Adriana decided not to stand on ceremony. "Me, you, and you," she answered impatiently. "But me. Robert, I really don't have time to talk to you." Adriana sighed. "If you have something to say, say it. If not, let's say goodbye." "Have you changed?" Robert noticed. "Was he a good teacher?" She argued. "Are you done?" "Adriana, let's start over." He said. "Did you think long?" The ex-lover asked ironically. "Yes," he admitted. "In the end, I thought about it and decided that I want to be with you. And if that's what you want, it's for the baby's sake. If that's what I want." Adriana laughed. "Are you doing me a favor?" "But why a favor?" "Because that's what you're all about." "Robert, I really don't have time to talk to you. Bye for now." After talking to her ex, Adriana's throat was suddenly dry. She drained her water and had no time to catch her breath when the phone rang again. "I told you I don't have time," roared Adriana and disconnected. The young woman fidgeted with the phone and looked at the screen and saw that Betty Mill had called. "Sorry, I just didn't look at the display," Adriana repented. "Yeah, I realized that," grinned her friend. "Though at first I thought you'd confessed. You're in a different circle now." "I guess so," she grinned wryly. "That's what Betty guessed. I see the party didn't go well. It might have been for some people, but it wasn't for me." Adriana sighed. "Did something happen?" "Not exactly, but don't say anything else," Betty cut her off. "I'm coming to see you this afternoon. We'll treat you." The friendly ambulance arrived at exactly 300 hours. Betty showed up with a rather impressive cake and 2 bottles of wine. "Wow!" Adriana exclaimed as she accepted the gifts. "Are we really going to sit down to all this? I can't vouch for the cake, but we'll have plenty of wine." He winked at his friend. "So tell me." Actually, Stephen, unlike most of his peers, could drink and never got drunk. He was down to the norm, and that's it. But on his 16th birthday, the kid had a blast. It all started with a glass of Spanish wine and ended with whiskey. Or was it tequila? Whatever. The birthday boy had mixed everything that could be mixed, and now he was paying the price. With a massive headache and a dry mouth. Oh, he crawled off the bed. Standing up from the floor, the boy felt like he was about to fall. Stephen sat down in a chair and, passing the no-nonsense dizziness, walked to the kitchen. What head hurts? With sympathy asked his father, sipping strong coffee. There is such a thing, nodded Stephen. Drink kefir, it'll help. And then some aspirin, John suggested. I will. And then I think I'll argue some more. That's right, approvingly said Wallace Sr., watching his son pouring kefir. What I wanted to ask. Why did our tutor leave so quickly? I have no idea, Stephen grumbled. We were dancing with her. Then she and my mom went to the conservatory for something. And that was it. That's about it, Dad muttered. Well, I see. What's the matter? Stephen asked, perplexed. No, it's nothing. I was just asking. She told me she didn't feel well. But maybe she did. Wallace Jr. shrugged and bypassed the kefir in one fell swoop. I'll go underground some more. After taking an aspirin tablet, Stephen went to bed. But the sleep was gone. And really, why did she leave? The guy wondered. I didn't do anything to hurt her, unless her mom said something to her. Stephen sighed. His relationship with his father was more trusting than with his mother. And it wasn't just that two men would understand each other better than a woman or women would understand them. The boy guessed that by and large Kathy had given birth to him for propriety, that is to say, to make it like everyone else's husband, wife, and kinder. It wasn't a very pleasant realization, but that's just the way it was. His mother took almost no part in Stephen's upbringing, which, however, did not bother him at all. His father was much better at it. So what the hell is Mom doing with Adriana? And what the hell did Mom say to her? But she couldn't suddenly feel sick 10 minutes after dancing so hard. Or maybe they were too incendiary. That thought cheered Stephen up. She's not a bad dancer, the guy thought. And remembering how he had spun the spit and pressed Adriana against him, he suddenly felt no, this is too much. However, the racy thoughts that Stephen hid even from himself were so persistent that the guy gave in. The fantasy went off the scale, and it took a lot of effort to subdue it. We have a purely business relationship, he whispered like a mantra. She tutors me. I tutor her. She tutors me. I tutor her, and nothing more. We have a purely business relationship. The frank visions finally receded, and Stephen fell asleep. But what was so terrible? Betty wondered. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with dancing, but for some people it's something out of the ordinary. And you just ran away. I was so embarrassed, I could have fallen to the ground. Well, you shouldn't have. By the way, by running away, you gave that lady reason to think you were thinking something like that. But think about it. Adriana wanted to say something, but she just froze with her mouth open. Betty's right. But on the other hand, it was too much for her to be in there. And she had a class with Stephen on Monday. What are we supposed to do now? You don't. A friend chuckled. It was only then that Adriana realized she'd said the question out loud. After all, you haven't done anything criminal. And if this Kathy thinks otherwise, that's her problem. By the way, everyone judges according to their own depravity. Well, there's something to that. Hee. Adriana. By the end of the first bottle, it didn't seem so terrible. Adriana really hadn't done anything she should be blushing about. So she had every right to walk into her employer's house with her head held high. As the afternoon turned to evening, Betty suggested karaoke. Let's go out. You didn't have a good time last night, so why not continue the party? The karaoke bar was not far from the neighbor's yard, so her friend's idea was well received. Betty and Adriana sang a lot of songs and then went home in a great mood. And on Sunday morning, the Wallace Hare's tutor forgot about any residue on her soul. And on Monday, no matter how hard Adriana tried to put an independent expression on her face, she could hardly manage it. When the young woman entered the Wallace house, she was confronted by the rich man's wife. Kathy could clearly sense the mood of her son's tutor. A look of satisfaction flashed across the woman's face. "Hello, Kathy." Adriana greeted the lady of the house, and her voice trembled. "Hello," Kathy replied arrogantly, and tapping the high heels of her suede boots, walked out of the mansion, leaving behind Gorky and a trail of French perfume. Stephen behaved as if nothing had happened, but Adriana sensed, faintly, a change in his demeanor. The young woman did not understand what it was, but had no doubt that it had taken place. Besides, it seemed to Adriana that the apprentice wanted to tell her something. She could even guess what it was, and it made her uncomfortable. "Adriana, can I ask you a question?" "Yes, of course. Why did you leave my birthday party?" Adriana suddenly became agitated. What was that about? She thought. But pulling herself together, she answered, "Stephen, it's nothing. I just didn't feel well." "You sure?" Wallace Jr. asked incredulously. "It's just that you and I were dancing like that. And I thought, what, did somebody hurt you or something?" "That's quite an audience." Stephen smiled awkwardly, and Adriana thought for the umpteenth time that her student was not the happiest person in the world. And those who say that money isn't what makes you happy are right. Though being rich is certainly more comfortable than being poor. It depends. "No, it's all right. Trying to appear wealthy," replied the tutor. "No one has offended me. Everything is fine." Already on the bus, Adriana thought that she had not lied to her tutor. She really wasn't offended, because if she were Alina, she would probably have done the same thing. Stephen, meanwhile, was thinking about his tutor. When Adriana came to class, she was wearing a strict black pantsuit. Yes, except that she saw silver dresses, which opened expressively in the windows, that is, the back and the exact leg, and what a graceful waist. Stephen remembered how he had felt through the thin fabric of the dress, the warmth of her skin, and he was thrown into a fever. No, something must be done about it. Panic, the boy thought. Stephen tried to remember the shortcomings of his tutor, and to his dismay, found none. Except that height didn't work out. But is it such a disadvantage when otherwise the figure is super? "No," stated Stephen. "And it seems, it's not just attraction, it's love." "What's new?" asked Kathy, the brown hairdresser. The woman's name was actually Christina, but the hairdresser for all the city's elite preferred to be called Tina. "That's okay," Ms. Wallace shrugged. "Recently celebrated the 16th birthday of Christina's son. That's all the news. Christina came to see me the other day," Tina said meaningfully, and Kathy realized what the hairdresser was expecting from her. Oh, that Christina. Always in her repertoire. Kathy loved her best friend very much, but she couldn't help but notice one flaw in her. Christina couldn't keep her mouth shut, and she liked to exaggerate. So, Kathy decided not to live up to the expectations of a nosy hairdresser. At least not to begin with. But she didn't like to make a big deal out of it, especially since there was nothing to make a big deal out of. "But she told me a wild story." "A wild story," laughed Wallace. "Oh, mercy, what a wild story." "She said that your son's tutor showed up at his birthday party half naked, and they danced an obscene dance," Tina said in such a tragic voice, and made such terrible eyes that Kathy laughed even harder. "But they did dance," said Wallace, miffed. "But I didn't see anything indecent, just a regular dance medley. And the dress was within the bounds of propriety. Perhaps such a dance for a teacher and a schoolboy is too familiar, but it was far from indecent. But I still gave the tutor a preventive talk." "Good for you," exclaimed the hairdresser of the United States. "It's better to overdo it than underdo it." Kathy, Christina go on friends for a long time. No. And it occurred to her that her friends complement each other. One not overly talkative, the other curious to the point of obscenity. "Exactly," Kathy said, making it clear that she had no desire to talk about the subject. "Tell me, how is France faring?" Kathy asked. The day before yesterday, Tina flew in from Paris, where there was an international conference, which was attended by the whole top of the beauty industry. Alina was much more interested in it. "What's she going to do?" hummed Tina, disappointed that they wouldn't hear anything interesting. "Worth, what's up with the sales?" "There's a fur coat sale that week, and you're silent as a partisan." Mrs. Wallace exclaimed. Where? Kathy drove her trusty BMW and thought that it would be good to talk to her husband to fly to Paris for a week. Blago they had a small, but very beautiful and cozy mansion with an attic. Sail abroad is not a gathering of wild-eyed Russian women in local boutiques, which, in fact, to call them such could only with a great stretch. Paris or Milan is another matter. It's settled, Kathy thought with a satisfied smile. I'll ask Wallace to go to Paris. If he doesn't want to, I'll fly alone. I'll give myself a fur coat for New Year's Eve. At the same time, and buy an evening dress. Before New Year's Eve, they have a great selection of dresses, tapes. Yes, I would love to, regretfully divorced husband. But that week I have an urgent business trip, so you'll have to fly without me. Well, I'll fly without you, Kathy replied with feigned sadness. To tell the truth, the Wallace couple had rarely traveled together in the last few years, but they were both playing nice. John guessed that his wife was not bored of spending time without him. Kathy, in turn, knew that her husband was not without sin. Both were satisfied with everything, so there were no jealousy scenes. The main thing is not to forget to brighten the sad face about the fact that the other half cannot join. It just so happened that the Wallace couple departed on the same day. Look, behave yourself, they told Stephen. He jokingly saluted them to dress. Keep warm and don't try to eat dry. Kathy threatened with a dainty finger, and the parents left the house. The school was quarantined, and Stephen, having seen his parents off, fell into a warm bed. Adriana should be home by 2 o'clock to finish her nap, so he can sleep until noon. Adriana. The other day, Stephen's buddy David and tutor stopped by. Just as the new girl was leaving, the guy winked. Stephen was overcome with a strange feeling. Funny, but at that moment he felt that the beautiful tutor was really his girlfriend. He also wished she wasn't. No, Wallace Jr. was forced to answer. That's my math tutor. Wow. The prize whistled Buddy. And my tutor. She's a 45-year-old woman weighing a pound and swiping everything without looking. Stephen laughed. For what purpose? Wallace, have you lost your mind? David grinned. Don't you get it? It's a sin not to hook up with such a girl. Wait, so you could hook up with a tutor? Why not? Isn't a tutor a woman? A woman, of course, Stephen mumbled, but she's smarter than that. However, Adriana in her silver dress reappeared in front of his eyes. Wallace Jr.'s fingers felt the warmth of her skin, as if it were his, making him throw a fever again. Now in a semi-drama, Stephen let his dreams expand beyond his wildest dreams. But this time the boy didn't think to quell them. Stephen, what are you thinking? Adriana asked, and the millionaire hair finally woke up. This is the 5th time I've asked you a question and you can't hear me. Sorry, I was thinking, Stephen said, embarrassed. If Adriana knew what he was thinking about. It's okay, it happens, the tutor replied condescendingly. Aha, said the student absent-mindedly. And suddenly, without fully realizing what he was doing, he kissed her. Stephen, what are you doing? The young woman marveled, pulling out of his embrace. I'm Adriana, he whispered. I love you. Adriana looked at her watch and sighed heavily. 3rd hour of the night, and she still hadn't poked her eyes open. The young woman replayed what had happened in her head for the umpteenth time and wondered to herself, how did I do this? Adriana knew one thing: she was an educator, Stephen a mentee. That was the way it should have been done. But you don't fight when you fight when you fight. Adriana didn't condemn teachers and tutors who got close to their students, but she didn't approve of their behavior. And now she was one of them. We're like Romeo and Juliet, Stephen whispered, to which Adriana only grinned. I'm not Juliet. I'm getting old. Don't say so. You are the youngest, the most beautiful. Remembering this dialogue, she felt Juliet blushing. Catherine, aye. Then, and what to do now? She thought in despair. One thing is clear: Adriana will no longer work with the Wallace hair. We can, of course, Pretend that nothing happened. But how will Stephen behave? What about Stephen? Adriana hummed to herself. He's a smart guy. I'm sure he understands the situation correctly. It was just a passing weakness, and that's all. The young woman calmed down, but then suddenly began to sort things out. Something was bothering her, but what was it? And when Adriana realized it, she became completely despondent. After all, Stephen had told her about love. But was it love? He knew better, of course. But the teacher suspected that it was a typical teenage hormonal outburst, and now she'd committed an ethical breach. Tomorrow, she would tell Stephen to stop cooperating. With that thought, Adriana fell asleep. The young woman walked to school as if in a dream. She had only slept for 2 o'clock, so she did some work. Adriana, are you not feeling well? The vice principal asked sympathetically. I'm not well. I'm disgusted. I'm the worst. And all because I was no better than a teacher who has relationships with underage students. I wanted to yell back, but Adriana limited herself to a short answer, no, it's okay. The young woman didn't remember how she'd gotten home. She still had to go to Stephen's class. Although, in fact, what's to stop her from calling and saying she won't be coming again? I didn't hire you, Stephen pointed out. So what do we do? Adriana asked with a sigh. Wait for my father to arrive. And he would be here in a week. A week, Adriana repeated disappointedly. Yes, in a week, Stephen confirmed. For a second, the young woman had the thought of telling her mentee that she wasn't feeling well. Yes, as a matter of fact, she was. Adriana had not slept well. She had a headache, and the drive to the cottage village 15 kilometers from the city was an ordeal. However, despite the mess in her head, Adriana realized in time how she would look in her students' eyes, like an ostrich hiding its head in the sand. I see, the young woman muttered. Well, I'll be in at 3 then. Okay. Stephen acted as if nothing had happened, for which Adriana was very grateful. Toward the end of the class, however, the boy said, Does that blouse look good on you? Thank you, Adriana nodded. It emphasizes the beauty of your figure, he added with a meaningful look. Yeah. The tutor nodded again. Yes, I think I'll go. But what if I don't let go? What if I shout? No one will hear. Stephen grinned, putting his arm around her waist. Stephen, relax. You already with dignity, answered the guy, and added no, so no. Stephen understood perfectly well that Adriana was uncomfortable. Of course, he had heard many stories about teachers and students, but he realized that his tutor was not one of those. Well, is Stephen willing to wait as long as it takes? The boy realized more and more clearly, no, this is not an affair. Stephen no longer hinted to the tutor about what was between them, but he does not intend to give up his feelings. In a month. Are you not satisfied with the salary? Wallace Sr. asked in surprise. Or did someone offer you more? That's not a problem. I can pay you more. Just name the amount. No, Adriana shook her head. It's just a family emergency. Well, I'm sorry, John said with genuine regret. It's been a pleasure working with you. Likewise, Adriana said, feeling like an asshole. Stephen's parents had returned safely from their trips, and Adriana had not told her employer that she planned to stop working with him, because Stephen was behaving as if nothing had happened, and she saw no reason to do so. The classes continued. The incident was slowly being hammered out, but a couple days before the conversation with Wallace Sr., Adriana began to feel ill right in class. You look pale, Betty remarked. The friends were drinking coffee in the teacher's lounge, and Adriana glanced at her watch every 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes felt like an eternity. Yeah, I don't feel well, she nodded. Nauseous, dizzy, must be getting sick. They say there's a virus going around right now, Betty nodded. So I'm sorry, friend, but I'm gonna stay away from you. What's there to apologize for? Adriana said in a weak voice. How many more classes do you have? 3 more. Mila shook her head. Well, why don't you wake up? You're not wearing your face. Go to the clinic and get a sick leave. Yeah, I guess I'll do that. After listening to Adriana, the therapist said you're not the one to see. Who is? I have something serious, but whether it's serious or not is for you to judge. The doctor smirked. And I, for my part, refer you to a gynecologist. To tell the truth, the question was asked out of inertia. Adriana understood everything, but refused to believe it. The gynecologist's voice sounded like the rolls of thunder. Congratulations, you're pregnant. About 5 weeks. Is she kidding? Adriana thought angrily. Though how would she know that a tutor could be pregnant by her student? That's a load of crap. Are you sure? Idly she asked. The gynecologist smiled confidently. So run along and enjoy it. Thank you. You are a man, smiled Adriana. That same day, she informed John that she could no longer practice with his son. When Adriana got home, everything was falling out of her hands. The coffee had run off. The reaper had flooded, and when she poured water into the bathroom, she nearly flooded the neighbors. Damn it, the young woman shouted in her heart. The cell phone rang. When she saw Robert's number on the display, which Adriana had never bothered to delete and blacklist, she giggled hysterically. Lately, her ex had suddenly started attacking her with calls. A couple of times in the driveway and one near the school. Adriana needed him like a fish needs an umbrella. But right now, Robert's call came in handy. That's who she's going to get off on. Hello, beautiful. The ex-lover said hello cheerfully. Hi, Cole. No kidding, replied Adriana. And what the hell do we need? Why the hell? Robert was clearly in a complacent state, and this particularly aggravated the young woman. Who else? She's on a roll. What do you want from me? I told you when I said it was over between us. Why did you do that? Then Adriana cut her off. That's it, Robert. Love is long gone. The tomatoes are wilted. Our shoes are too tight, and we're not going back. Xiao. On the quarrel, Robert had no choice but to pass out, and Adriana collapsed on the bed and sobbed bitterly at Riva. She felt much better and needed someone to talk to. Mom, despite their trusting relationship, wasn't the right person for that. That left Betty. Honey, I'm not distracting you, she asked. Did something happen to you? Yes, Adriana said quietly, with a sigh. Wallace again. Well, you could say that. Did you go to the clinic? I did. A young woman took my sobs away, and they told me you'd been diagnosed with something serious. Scared Betty. Betty. I'm pregnant, Adriana replied. And I let the tears flow again. Pregnant with Robert. What Robert with Stephen? Oh my God. How the hell did you get pregnant? I don't know. Overwhelmed, Adriana said, smearing tears down her cheeks simply. But it just happened. Yeah, Adriana, you're a real handful. Betty sounded shocked, which is not surprising. What do you teach me, girl? What to do? You think? I don't know. I wanted a baby so badly. And now you're having one. My friend exclaimed. What's the problem? Does it matter who the father is? For yourself. Go ahead and live your life in peace. And what will the school say? Adriana, fear God. You're already 32. Who cares what anyone says? No one really cares. Golikova's mom's Fang, who teaches KAHL, comes in a Jeep. And she's married, by the way. Money is not enough for her. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. Yeah, she sighed. Adriana, you know how you said Robert was on the horizon again. Well, I did, so what? But I just thought maybe I shouldn't push him away. Well, the man's cute, no matter what. What's your point? Because he could be the father of your baby. Did you think long and hard about it? Adriana asked. He didn't want his own child. And you're suggesting we force someone else's on him. You don't say. You say that he's being persistent and that he seems to agree to the child. Maybe, maybe not. She cut him off. How could you even think that? Well, maybe you're right. But maybe Robert really has changed. It's a long story, but it's hard to believe. But it's up to you, Milo chuckled. But I wouldn't throw it around if I were you. It's not like Wallace Jr. is going to raise your kinder. That's the last thing on my mind, Adriana assured him. In fact, I walked out on them, and I explained it somehow. I said I wanted to terminate my employment for family reasons, and I didn't cover my soul. Betty summed it up. Exactly. Okay, Betty, I'm gonna go take a bath. I already tried that today, but I failed miserably. I almost flooded the neighbors, but now that I talked to you, I feel better. Well, what are best friends for? With a smile asked faithful friend. Go take your bath, and don't worry. You know I'll always help you. I know, said Adriana gratefully. Lying in the warm, fragrant bath, she thought how nice it was to have a friend like Betty. Someone who would be willing to help her, if not help her, at least listen to her at any time of the day or night. Always acted on Adriana like a breath of fresh air or a balm on the soul. And this is something not everyone can boast of. Maternity leave became for Adriana that fertile period when you can do nothing and enjoy life. The future mother took a lot of walks, loved classical music, ballet, and began to visit exhibitions. And now Adriana, having enjoyed the works of a young, and according to rumors, fashionable artist, decided to take a walk in the park and eat ice cream. To you, as always, asked the ice cream seller with a smile. During her pregnancy, Adriana could no longer imagine her existence without this treat. From time to time, the woman bought new products, but her greatest love was still vanilla ice cream on a stick. It was delicious. Adriana could eat it every day. Yes, I'll have a scone, she smiled. In response, Adriana took the ice cream and sat down on a bench nearby. As she downed the ice cream, she blissfully froze her eyes and stroked her belly. Adriana, wow, she thought she'd forgotten that voice. Adriana slowly opened her eyes and saw Stephen. He hadn't changed a bit in the 6 months they hadn't seen each other, except for his hair. Hello, he said with a smile. Hello, Stephen, she replied discreetly. How are you? Asked the guy, looking carefully at Adriana's stomach. Fine, thank you. And you? I'm fine too. He nodded. Applied for the department. Hospitality business. Good for you. Praised the former tutor and smiled strangely. So the lessons were not wasted. So, Wallace Jr. nodded with a smile, keeping his eyes on her belly. He's figured it out. Adriana thought desperately. Adriana, did you get married? Stephen asked hesitantly. Yes. After a little silence, she answered. Well, good luck, said the guy, his face changing. It was good to see a mutually successful entry. Stephen was sure that this child was his. Of course, theoretically Adriana could have gotten pregnant by another man, but he was sure that was not the case. And it wasn't just her saying she was single. As if an unmarried person couldn't get pregnant. Wallace Jr. could make a great psychologist if he wanted to, if the tutor had another man. There'd hardly be anything between them. The woman in the relationship would have molded Stephen with a ringing slap, or at the very least read a rant. After all, Adriana could have said that she had a loved one to whom she was faithful, and Stephen would not have insisted. He was a man of low tide in general, and male solidarity was not an empty word to Wallace Jr., so everything was leading up to the fact that he, Stephen, would soon be a father. The party at the invitation-only private nightclub was in full swing. She just took off without saying anything, you know, to the savvy hair 1 million Wallace, to David's friend under his 4th glass of stiff cocktail. Yeah, I understand, he assured her. Well, what did you expect? It's a delicate situation. What if your parents had gotten to it? Well, David certainly had a point. But first, real feelings. What was Stephen sure of? It is such a situation is perceived painfully, and all reasonable arguments are useless. And then, continued his buddy, his exhortations, your relationship has no future. Yes, And your former teacher made it clear that she does not need them. She realizes, probably, that not our circle. David wanted to say something else, but Stephen didn't give him the chance. He grabbed his friend by the chest and threateningly said, "What did you say? Come on, say it again." "Stephen, don't be stupid." David tried to get free, but it was not to be. Wallace Jr. clutched his club jacket even tighter and said, "I'm gonna give you a good one. She's 100 times better than those silicone chickens." "Stephen." "Yeah, I'm not arguing. But it's like the guy didn't hear him. Come on, let's go outside and talk. I don't care if you're a man or not." "Oh, don't do that. Vassal is good." He intervened in their quarrel. "David didn't say anything like that. I'll see you now." Stephen got up from the table, but he couldn't keep his feet. The hair to the 1 million fell right onto the table, knocking over all the dishes. "That asshole ruined the party," someone said. "What happened?" asked the receptionist Kelly, whom the guys knew well. "Get out of here, you chicken." "Stephen's got a temper. You weren't even close to her, young man. We pay for the battles, the dishes," strictly said the girl, not paying attention to the insults. She knew this young man perfectly well and did not understand what fly bit him. Usually the son of the owner of a chain of hotels and pleasure boat parks behaved correctly and left generous tips. He must have had an accident, the receptionist thought. However, that didn't mean that broken glasses and plates, not to mention workplace insults, were the norm. "No, if you smoke, you'd better answer for it." "No way," shouted Stephen in the face of the administrator, for extra convincing Nasanov Figo right under the girl's nose. "Kelly, I'm sorry," David said quietly. "The frame is just a problem. So I drank more than usual." The girl quit. "I'll pay for it now." "Thank you," smiled gratefully at Kelly. "Shall I call him a cab?" "Yes, be my guest." The receptionist stepped away from the table, and the guys began to calm the rambunctious Romeo. "Wallace, sit down," Mishka said, trying to get his buddy onto the leather couch. Stephen obeyed, while the waitress cleaned up the mess. He mumbled something to himself, glancing at the girl. The cab pulled up, the receptionist announced, and the guys picked Stephen up and led him to the exit. "I'm not going anywhere." Wallace Jr. protested as the boys led him to the car. "Stephen, come on." David persuaded him. "The steak has wandered, and it will. She kept it from me that she was pregnant." Stephen persisted. "Adriana hid my child from me." The friends noticed with annoyance that a crowd of gawkers had gathered near them, which was to be expected. Some were already filming the scene. "My tutor is pregnant by me and tried to hide it," Wallace proclaimed to the cab driver. "Come on, get in," the driver grinned. "Is the meter running?" "I don't give a damn," Stephen said carelessly, getting into the car. "Do you even know who I am?" "I'm Wallace, and I can buy all of you outright." "Yeah," nodded the cab driver and thought, "Sure, you can in about 10 years. Right now, your rich daddy's paying for all your fun." But he didn't say anything out loud. After all, the customer, as you know, is always right. Stephen dozed off on the road, and when they got to the Wallace mansion and the driver was pushing him, he started looking around in bewilderment. "How did I get here?" Stephen asked the cabbie. "How?" The cab driver grinned. "How else did your friends call a cab? You can pay by card, unless it's a money order." "All right with a transfer," Wallace Jr. nodded, noting that it was starting to get light outside. He patted his pockets. His cell phone was in the pocket of his jean jacket. "Speak. Put your cell phone number in your teeth," Stephen said. The cab driver dictated the number, and the guy, swearing to himself, hit the wrong digits. He managed to move the money only on the third attempt. After that, Stephen got out of the mansion's overturned cork and flew to his room. John Wallace was furious. He rarely surfed social media, but this time it was as if he could sense the posts and videos of inappropriate behavior. Their only offspring was murdered by hotel and boat owners. The commentators were on fire. "These majors are completely crazy. They think they can do anything. A young girl was indignant. Their parents have no time to educate them, replied an older woman. That's the result. Both comments gained more than 300 likes. I wonder if what he said about tutoring is true, wrote another commenter. By the way, there were some who condemned Adriana, but strangely enough, they turned out to be not so many. Mostly everyone was cursing Stephen and his parents. What can be said? The masses did not pity the rich. What does he think he's doing? Growled the head of the family. I would ask another question, Kathy grinned. What does she allow herself? I mean allowed. By the way, her leaving immediately seems suspicious to me, but the former tutor has yet to be dealt with, replied the husband. But our son behaved simply unacceptable. And what came over him? Well, you heard everything yourself. Kathy shrugged with a grin. I wonder if she's really pregnant with our son. And if so, how did it become known? Ramke? Who knows? John said thoughtfully. He must have found out by accident. Maybe he saw her somewhere on the street, and there is already a pose on the nose. It's been a while since she left. And if it was the tutor who gave up the lessons in order to date Stephen with impunity, suggested Kathy. Anything could be, nodded the husband. Besides, I'm not ruling out another possibility. The child may not be from the race, but he may or may not be from the race. The loud facts of the relationship between them are in evidence, the spouse noted, which means the tutor needs to be punished. And how do you not tell her? John grinned. Are you familiar with the law? Or do you have on your mind only clothes and loud salons? It's 16. And that means that our former tutor doesn't fall under Article 134. Who cares? Kathy exclaimed. She's clearly got our boy's head up her ass. And the bottom line is what we have. Wallace looked at his wife and shook his head. And the boys. She's worried about ruining her reputation. That's all. This is no time for recriminations, though. Not hot, said John. In any case, this situation needs to be dealt with. Anyway, I know everything and will take appropriate measures. What do you say? Adriana also saw these posts and was shocked, to say the least. In addition, the young woman was afraid that it would become known at school. I don't know what kind of Adriana he was talking about. Betty shrugged. Your name wasn't mentioned. Betty, think about it. How many tutors named Adriana have tutored your son in math? Yes, and all those socialites at Stephen's birthday party will know who he was talking about. Son of a bitch, swearing at Betty. Who told him to say that? And come on, Adriana waved her hand. He's just a teenager. What's he got to do with it? Whereas I'm a grown woman. Don't beat yourself up, her friend said, taking her hand in hers. You're having a baby, and that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. And everything else will work out somehow. The friends sat in the park on Adriana's favorite bench closer to the ice cream stand. The saleswoman, looking at them, thought that female friendship, no matter what they say, still exists. She nodded encouragingly to the young women, and sweetly intercepting her gaze, winked and asked Adriana, well, on plumber, Cheku, on plumber, Cheku. Resolutely answered the mother-to-be. To find the former tutor's son, Wallace Sr. did not have much difficulty. True, he did not catch Adriana at home, but even that was not a big problem. She's probably in the park, said the thin old woman in the colorful sundress with a smile. She goes there every day. And that's right, she's expecting a baby. It's good for her. Oh, and who are you? I'm from work. The businessman smiled charmingly. So she's walking in the park, son. While John was thinking whether to go to the park or to wait for Adriana on the bench, a young woman approached the house in the company of a spectacular blonde in a tank top and shorts. I guess my assumption of a chance encounter was correct. Wallace grinned to himself, looking at the impressive belly, a former tutor to his only heir. Bye, dear, said the blonde. After that, the ladies lost their meters. Take care. Good night, replied Adriana, and taking a wide-keyed sundress out of her pocket, headed for the entrance. Adriana, A young woman could hear you. The voice of her former employer, and her heart pounded as if she were competing in a running race. So he saw the empty rollers too. Adriana guessed, and trying to appear calm, answered, "Hello, John. Yes, of course, I'm listening to you. I think you understand why I came to see you," he said. She saw no point in pretending, so she nodded. "Yes, I do. But I assure you—" "Don't do that," Wallace interrupted, raising his right hand. "You don't have to assure me of anything. Just answer me one question. Did anything happen between you and my son? I realize, of course, that the child you are expecting may not be Stephen's. However, his behavior indicates that the situation did not arise out of nothing. So what's your answer?" Adriana was silent. She was more ashamed than ever in her life. "I don't advise you to cheat," John added with a sigh, "because my son and I have no secrets from each other. Even if Stephen does not decide to confess soon, sooner or later he will." The young woman was ready to confess everything, but she couldn't say a word out of excitement. "Adriana, yes, John," she said in one breath, but it was only once. Well, should the child say it or not? Feverishly thought, and Adriana. Oh, how great was the temptation to keep silent. But as she did not like reticence, she decided to confess it to her. After all, Adriana had not demanded any money from them, nor did she intend to. As for Stephen, it would pass. The guy will forget her, fall in love with some girl, or parents will find a bride from their party, and everything will go back to normal. And the baby. Adriana nodded. "But you don't have to worry about that." "I'm not claiming anything." "I guess," nodded the businessman with a thoughtful expression. "But that's not the point. The guy seems to have lost his mind. What do we do?" "I don't know. But I know you have to leave, Adriana," said Wallace Sr., as if it were a little thing like a drink of water. "And where am I supposed to go?" Stunned, said the young woman. "Where do you want to go?" Spread his hands, John. "Even in the capital. I quite seriously want to offer you a very favorable deal." He took a breath and continued, "I buy you an apartment in any city you want. And after the baby is born, I'll help you with employment. What is required of me?" Adriana asked, remembering that this was a transaction. "It's nothing." The businessman smiled. "My son knows nothing about you. Actually, it sounded like fun. After those posts and videos online, she didn't want to stay in this town." Adriana was already thinking about renting out her apartment and moving to her parents' house in the country. And here was such a great opportunity to start a new life. Just her and the baby. And yet Adriana had her doubts. What if Stephen wants to find me? She asked a reasonable question. "But if you don't tell him where you are, he won't find you, will he?" John grinned, and so, as they say, out of sight, out of mind. He saw that the proposal is kind of interested in tutoring, but she still has doubts. So it is necessary to find such arguments so that they do not remain. And he seems to have found one. "Adriana, note that I didn't report it to the agency," Wallace said. "I don't really need to. Besides, I could have used all my connections to make sure you weren't even hired to scrub floors at a school in the neighborhood. Then again, there's the possibility that this story would become known throughout the city and you'd start to be recognized by sight. Still, I need to think about it," Adriana muttered. "Sure," nodded the businessman. "Here's my card in case you deleted my number. Don't you dare delay me any longer." But so thought the young woman as she walked up to the apartment. "As recently as yesterday, I was thinking of leaving myself. And today, when I'm offered an apartment anywhere in Russia, I hesitate. Anyone would," Betty remarked, when Adriana called her to tell her about Mr. Wallace's offer. "There's only free cheese in a mousetrap." Well, not really free, but it's too easy a condition. He'd do anything for his son. Right now, he's just trying to get the kid to forget you. And an apartment seems like a reasonable price to pay. But what's an apartment to a man who has mansions all over the world? And then, deep down, he's willing to help his grandson. "You think so?" "Yes, I'm sure of it." The confidence of the force was not in vain. At this time, John Wallace was driving home and thinking that in case of Adriana's consent, he would kill two birds with one stone. He would help his son to forget the woman whose love for him would lead to nothing good, and at the same time, he would help to improve the living conditions of his future grandson. "I'll miss you," Betty sobbed, seeing her friend off on the train. "Oh, I can't," laughed Adriana, even though she wanted to cry too. "It feels like I'm not leaving for a neighboring town, but for another country. Though I'll miss our heart-to-heart conversations on the phone too." It's not that tears did appear in her eyes, and in a second her friends were already sobbing, hugging each other. Coming through, coming through." The conductor hurried up. "What do you have?" The friends said with glee and, waving their hands, laughed through their tears. After the incident in the club, Stephen decided not to take alcohol in his mouth under any circumstances. Watching the video, the guy saw himself from the outside, and it was a disgusting sight. In addition, he elementary set up Adriana. Certainly Mum's girlfriend's ball also will not miss their own. So he should explain himself to his former tutor and apologize to her. Stephen did not know where she lived and realized that his father was unlikely to give him the address. There was a serious conversation between father and son, and John made it clear that he would not approve of a relationship with the tutor, so something had to be done. Stephen went to the website of the tutoring agency where Adriana worked, hoping to find a lead. He almost howled in disappointment when Adriana's profile was deleted. "Damn it," he said out loud. Had his father done this? Stephen didn't want to believe it, but how else to explain the absence of her profile? And then it hit him. He knew his ex-tutor worked at School 26. So what am I waiting for? Thought Wallace Jr. and laughed with relief. School 26 was almost in the center of town, and getting there from the cottage community was no problem. But would Stephen be given the address? Especially since it was summer, and it was not certain that he would find anyone there. But there were no other options, so we'll make do with what we've got. "Hello," greeted the janitor politely. "Hello," with dignity replied an elderly woman with a high purple hairstyle. An elderly woman with a high purple-colored hairstyle answered with dignity. "Can you please tell me if I can find a female employee of this school?" The janitor frowned, and Stephen began to fantasize on the fly. "You see, an acquaintance wrote me an address, and I lost it. Besides, I recently changed my cell phone, and all the numbers are still in the old one. I don't know." The old woman shook her head, looking at him intently. "In general, no one gives the addresses of employees. Circumstances vary, of course, but mostly they don't give them. But maybe I'll get lucky." Stephen smiled. "Everything can be." The janitor shrugged her shoulders, and seeing a woman in a bright yellow dress, Lisa turned to her. "It's for you, and another employee. And social media for what?" hummed the woman. "So the profile is closed," spread his hands Wallace Jr. "And who do you want?" Lisa asked. "I need Adriana. She first went on maternity leave, and then quit. I think it was due to a move to another city. I don't remember exactly." "In connection with the move to another city," shocked, said Stephen. "Exactly. You didn't know?" "No," I shook my head. "We just lost sight of each other for a long time. What am I really explaining?" Stephen thought, and apologizing, left the school building. The boy walked and thought that this was clearly his father's doing, and something told him it was. The father was determined, and who knows what the father would do if Stephen found Adriana. Certainly not good, and especially not for her. So wouldn't it be easier to just leave it alone? It's been 10 years. 2 years ago, Wallace Sr. left this world. Alas, cancer spares no one. Stephen inherited all the assets as planned. He took over the firm, and his father's business partners noted that the boy was quite good at it. 3 months ago, Mrs. Wallace remarried and went to Paris with her new husband. She was very fond of the Parisian mansion with the attic and its sale. Stephen had all the money, power, connections, and opportunities that a mere mortal could only dream of. The only thing missing was love. Women for pleasure didn't count. By the time he was 26, Wallace Jr. had no family. What are my years? He joked, though his mood was often cloudy. But when he remembered his lush brown curls and short figure, he was immediately enlightened. Adriana, 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 he thought with a sigh. And why couldn't I defend my love? Why? Why? Because I was only 16. What could I do? Yes, I could have found her later. His thoughts were confused, as they always were when Stephen thought of Adriana. He was aimlessly clicking buttons on the remote control. And suddenly, at first Wallace thought he was hallucinating. Well, what could he think? With Adriana smiling at him from the screen. In person, Stephen turned up the volume. The queen of his dreams was talking about some new method of teaching retarded children. And when the host of the program said in which city the children's institution was located, Stephen was ready to kiss him. It's decided. As he fell asleep, he thought, tomorrow I will visit that city. Stephen, but we've been preparing for this deal for almost 6 months, exclaimed his deputy. Are you sure that everything will work out without you? Daima, he urged. My late father always said that a real businessman should literally radiate confidence, even if you do not feel it. Yuzik, I trust you, so let's give it our best shot. I know you can do it, instructed the deputy. Stephen left the office and got into his Lexus and drove off to meet his destiny. Finding a children's center for children with disabilities was not difficult. Half the job is done, he thought contentedly. Before going to the neighboring town, Stephen made some inquiries about Adriana. He found out that his tutor was single and raising her son Christopher alone. Christopher, Wallace repeated quietly, no longer doubting for a second that Adriana was raising his son. Christopher Wallace. There was a bouquet of scarlet roses in the car. At first, Stephen thought about buying a ring, but changed his mind. Flowers were enough, but a ring might scare Adriana away. The young businessman was sitting in his SUV in the parking lot in front of the children's center and leisurely held out his coffee. Suddenly, he saw her. Adriana was dressed in a light flowing gown of soft coral color, spectacularly appreciating her brown hair slightly burned out in the July sun. The demeanor of the century buns. The young woman approached the white Toyota and opened her purse, which apparently contained the car keys. Crazy, Stephen thought. She hadn't changed at all. He picked up the flowers and walked toward Adriana. Good afternoon, Stephen said with a warm smile. Good afternoon. Stunned, Adriana repeated. Stephen, how did you end up here? Adriana, let's not talk about you, Wallace said affectionately, yet firmly, holding out the roses to her. It's inappropriate in our situation. If you haven't already realized, we're supposed to be together. Well, I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. I realize I should have done it much sooner, but better late than never, isn't it? Stephen, I also want to be involved in our son's life. And don't tell me that's not my son. Tears came to Adriana's eyes. She only now realized that all these years she had been suppressing her love for Stephen. First, because he was an underage boy and she was an educator. And then because John had made it clear to Adriana that he did not accept her as Stephen's daughter-in-law. Adriana realized how much she enjoyed saying that name. Yes, but how would Wallace Sr. feel about it? What's a sister-in-law? He asked with such tenderness that Adriana's heart sank. What about John? My father died 2 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. Life goes on, Stephen answered quietly. And I want to live it with you. By the way, Antashka is home now. Adriana smiled. Great. So, let's go meet our son. I'm all for it. When Stephen first came to meet his son, he felt his soul filled with something warm, light, and very, very pure. It was love. Daddy, where have you been so long? Asked the boy. I just got lost on the way to happiness, answered Stephen with a smile, and his eyes sparkled. Adriana, watching them, did not think to be ashamed of her tears, because they were tears of happiness. Stephen and Adriana got married 3 months later. In the wedding dress, the bride resembled a young girl. And no wonder, Because true love has no age, and a person is young as long as he loves and is loved.